Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Pennington County Planning Commission meeting of February 27, 2023. Recommendations to the Planning Commission on certain items from this agenda will be considered by the Board of Commissioners at their regular meeting on March 7th, 2023 at 10:30 a.m. The Planning Commission utilizes speaker request forms which are available in the Commission chambers. They're in the back. If you're an applicant, you don't need to submit one. Roll call. We have a complete roster today, plus, just for the record, Kelsey will be on Zoom from the staff for items 14 and 15. So any of the commission members want to mark that on. She's going to be on Zoom when she presents 14 and 15. First item on the agenda is approval of the February 13, 2023 minutes. Anybody have any corrections, additions, or omissions they'd like to put on the table? Hearing none, the chair would address a motion to approve.
Move. Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the February 13, 2023 minutes. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now we've got the February 15th, which was the BHR meeting in the afternoon from 4 to 6. Same thing.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the February 15th, 2023 minutes of the VHR special hearing. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the agenda. Have you all had a chance to go through your packet or review the agenda on the internet? Chair would address a motion to approve the agenda as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second to approve the agenda as published. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consent agenda.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brittany Molitor, Planning Director. The consent agenda. The following items have been placed on the consent agenda for action to be taken on all items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda by any Planning Commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration. The findings of this Planning Commission on certain items from this agenda are recommendations to the Pennington County Board of Commissioners, who will make the final decision. Item number 4 is conditional use permit review CU 12-01 for Eric and Amy Wagner to review a gunsmithing business as a home occupation in a suburban residential district. And staff is recommending approval of the extension of conditional use permit CU 12-01 with conditions. Item number 5 is conditional use permit review CU 1435 for Brad Nibel to review a multifamily dwelling in a suburban residential district, and staff is recommending approval of the extension of conditional use permit CU 1435 with conditions. Item number 6 is conditional use permit review CU 1722 for Pamela Phillips to review a single-wide mobile home to be used as a permanent single-family residence in a suburban residential district, and staff recommends to continue the review of conditional use permit CU 1722 to the May 22nd, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. Item number 7 is conditional use permit review CU 2146 for Jeff Devaney to review an off-premise sign to be located in a highway service district. And staff is recommending approval of the extension of conditional use permit CU 2146 with conditions. Item number 8 is conditional use permit review CU 2163 for Curtis and Denise Newkircher to review an accessory structure in a rural residential district. And staff is recommending approval of the extension of conditional use permit CU 2163 with conditions. Item number 9 is conditional use permit review CU 2169 for Lynn Beasley to review an accessory dwelling unit to be located in a detached garage in an agriculture district. And staff is recommending approval of the extension of conditional use permit CU 2169 with conditions. Item number 10 is conditional use permit review CU 2170 for Theodore and Lucy Hoodle to review an accessory structure as a primary structure in an agriculture district. Staff is recommending approval of the extension of conditional use permit CU 2170 with conditions. Item number 11 is conditional use permit review CU 2029 for Jeff Jameson to review a guest house in an agriculture district. Staff recommends approval of the extension of conditional use permit CU 20-29 with conditions. And finally, item 12 is Plan Unit Development Overlay Review PU 2121 for American Buffalo Resort LLC to review a plan unit development overlay for a recreational resort. And staff is recommending approval of the extension of Plan Unit Development Overlay PU 21-21 with conditions.
Thank you, Brittany. Staff desire to have any pulled?
No, not at this time.
Commission, two things. Any that you wish to note any clerical errors in your review? Would you care to have any pulled? I'd like to have number 7 pulled. Audience, anyone here to speak on any one of those 3 through 12 items that you just read off, because they're going to be voted on in one vote? Apparently none. Any other discussion? We need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 7, which will be discussed separately.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda with item number 7 pulled for discussion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 7. Let's shorten it up. I don't oppose signs, don't oppose sign ordinances, and you folks have noted to me this morning that I may have even voted to approve what I'm questioning at this point in time. So I just want that all part of it, and I understand that. If that was the case, then I've made an error too, because I didn't understand. But I think we need to discuss what, and it appears from Jason and I talking, it's all about the word face versus sign. Am I correct, Jason? We tried to discuss this somewhat this morning. It's face versus sign and the amount of square feet that are allowed because of it and what we're doing here. And I have some questions. If you'd like, I'll go ahead and just put the questions. One, that sign has a gap in it. And that gap, that's all one sign, really, you know. But the gap is to make it into 2 signs. And the other side, I believe, is the same way. One is filled at present, one is not. And my concern is face. The word face and sign are not synonymous, never have been synonymous. Face has to do with the direction of the road that the sign is facing. And that's the way I read it through our ordinance. It's the same way we talk about interstates, we talk about 2 lanes, we talk about 4 lanes. One that's on the front of the building has one face. This would have 2 faces. I think we have some 3s. I don't believe we have any 4s that I'm aware of. There could be faces. The structure demands that many faces because of the roads or what they're trying to do. They're certainly not going to face a sign to a blank mountainside or a rock outcropping. And my question is, I think what we've done here is allow, I thought I voted on 250 square feet per side. That would be a little less than the top sign, and another like it on the other side. Nothing like this. This is exactly what, when this ordinance was put into place, and I noted that, Jason. I mean, this was 20 years ago. People didn't want these big signs setting out in front of it. And by the way, I don't know, I still found it where a CUP for an on-premises does have the same wording in my book. For the CUP, not the normal sign. It does say per side on the normal sign. I agree with you. Well, we don't want that happening on even an on-premises sign. So that's where I'm at. That's why I'm opposed to it. That's why I'm having problems. We're confusing face and side. And I realize our legal says that. I don't believe it's ever said that. I don't think we applied it that way ever that I can remember. Go ahead. I'll be quiet.
Did you have a question for me, or?
Yeah, why are we above 500 square feet? That's the question.
Well, the way that this was presented in August of 2021, this is basically, he built what he said he was going to build, and this is what was presented at that planning commission meeting. Staff sees each one of these signs as 250 square feet. I think it's actually 240 square feet is what he proposed and what he built. He got the permits for the signs. These are 2 signs in staff's opinion, and that's why we recommended approval to the planning commission.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So what happens if you've got a 4x8, a 4x8, and a 4x8? We stretch this thing out. Each one of those is a face. If we're not over 250 square feet per face, we can keep going. See, that's one of the things that concerns me on this one.
Right, they can propose it and ask for it, and it would come to the planning commission for that.
Well,
The
no,
way
but
that the ordinance is written now.
what
you have to get sign permits.
you've got 2 faces here. Why can't you have 2 more faces over here and still not be above that mark?
Well, you would still need a conditional use permit.
Oh, yes, you would.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like there'd be no end to it if you weren't careful on that.
Right. I believe that's why these requests are heard for the planning commission to make a decision on.
Yeah.
On that sort of thing. But per our ordinance, the way the staff interpreted the ordinance, based on state's attorney's review, we went forward with the 250 square feet sign restriction for each one of these signs.
But Jason, the ordinance doesn't say sign, does it? It says face. And it also, prior to saying space, it says maximum display area. That's what I thought I'd see. Maximum display area shall not exceed 250 square feet on each face, not sign. That's my problem. If we've made an error and we've issued a permit for this, and as I said, you guys issued the permit based upon the review, it was August, during a meeting in August, then I can understand that. I don't remember seeing any picture that looked like this or sketch. And I think I voted for this thing. What I'm saying is I didn't vote for anything like that. I voted for 250 feet each side. That's what I thought it was going to come to. I don't think we can take it back now. I agree with you on that. But I don't think we should interpret that to be the basis, and there's other people going to run with it. Somehow, we've got to go with what we've been going with before. That sign has 2 faces, one that direction on 16, one this direction on 16-385. 2 faces, not multiple signs.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there a definition of face or sign in the planning ordinance anywhere? Maybe we need that.
That section of the zoning ordinance does need to be written. We've identified that moving forward.
And I'd concur with Jason on that. It was written years ago from, I think, a review of it started during subregs or something, 20-some years ago.
Right.
When this came out. And it was a knee-jerk reaction to people being unhappy with big signs put along 2-lane highways is where it started, if I remember right. And that's where the lowering the amount came to. So it's a good point, Jason. Anyone else? Then my last question is, what are we going to do going forward? There's other people going to look at this. We're on TV, and people do follow these things. What are we going to do? Because I feel that, and we're setting a precedent allowing this. Thank you, Megan.
Megan Kruger with the state's attorney's office. So future signs, it's up to this board's discretion to determine whether they're going to approve them or not. They don't have to approve something exactly like this just because somebody comes with something like this. I would note that there was a photograph of exactly this sign that was submitted by the applicant because I've seen it. So as far as I'm concerned, they are not violating their current conditions, and pursuant to our own ordinance, we can't revoke somebody's CUP unless they have failed to repeatedly comply with the conditions of the approved permit or continued conditional use as a threat to public health, safety, or general welfare. I don't believe that we've received any of those complaints, so my recommendation would be to just approve it the way that it is.
Megan, before you sit down, we come in here every other week. We don't see the picture you're talking about, or the person that.
It was in the
that-
packet.
Was it a packet for a sign permit, or was it a packet that came to here?
It was in the packet that was submitted to the planning commission.
I didn't get showed a picture this morning. I got showed a pencil sketch of something. I didn't get showed any picture of a sign. I got pencil sketch.
I mean, I don't really think that that matters because at this point, this commission has approved it. So whether you saw it or whether you didn't see it, I mean, it was approved.
Agreed.
So-
I'm saying that. But going on, it makes the difference. And if somebody comes in here and meets the same exact thing, does that mean we're supposed to vote for it?
You have to take every single thing that comes in front of you as an individualistic decision. You can't necessarily take one decision and apply it equally every single time. Every property is different. Every request is different.
Then am I going to see a condition like number 3, and then I'm going to look at a sign that has 1,300 square feet?
So Charlie, I'm not going to argue with you. What I'm telling you is I've given you my advice, so I'm going to sit down now, okay?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I don't think you made any suggestion of revoking this. In fact, I think you clearly said that what was done was done. Moving forward is the question that you had on it as to
Correct.
whether something needs to be adjusted so that something like this doesn't come before the planning commission again, designed like that, or some sort of change that needs to be made.
Thank you. Brittany?
Chairman, I would recommend that staff work on updating the sign ordinance and bringing it in front of this commission and forwarding it on to the Board of Commissioners as a direction. So since there are these concerns, that we could actually write it in there so it's clear, because I don't think it's clear in our ordinance per se, and then clarify that in our ordinance, because I think there are some things that need to be rewritten in the sign ordinance anyway. So I think that would be a solution, and defining sign face, sign area, those things, and basing it off the standard planning practices in the APA. So that would be my suggestion.
Thank you. I'm satisfied with that. Is there a motion? I don't think we need to discuss anything else on it. We did approve it before. This is an extension. Is there a motion to approve number 7?
I'd make that motion.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve CU 21-46 per staff's recommendation with 8 conditions. Any discussion from the audience,
Kelsey's right.
from the commission? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Megan
On to
Talmadge.
number 13, right?
Yep, sorry about
Okay.
that. Megan Talmadge, planner. Agenda item number 13 is conditional use permit, CU 23-05, is to allow a vacation home rental on the subject property. The applicants are Joseph and Madison Hamill, and their local contact is Jordan Hirschfeld. Their location is 12315 Whitetail Road. Their lot size is 2.18 acres. The current zoning is suburban residential district. The existing land use is residential. Their access is from Whitetail Road, and there is no flood hazard on the property. The zoning ordinance lists 7 criteria that the planning commission may consider in their review of conditional use permit applications. They're listed on the screen. 1, no, a vacation home rental takes place entirely within an existing residence. The requested use should not be detrimental or endanger the health, safety, or general welfare of the public. 2, no, a vacation home rental is considered a residential use. This requested use should not change the use of the property or have any long-term negative effects on the use and enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity. 3, no, the requested use should not affect the normal orderly development or improvement of any surrounding property in the area. 4, yes, all necessary utilities are in place. 5, yes, access is off of Whitetail Road via an existing approach. The requested use should not significantly affect traffic congestion. 6, yes, the property is zoned suburban residential district. An approved conditional use permit is required to operate a vacation home rental in this zoning district. 7, yes, the future land use is suburban residential district. Allowing this conditional use permit should be consistent with the current comprehensive plan. Currently on the property, there's a single-family residence with a deck and an attached garage and another detached garage. The on-site wastewater treatment system was installed at the same time as the single-family residence was built, and there's a current operating permit for it. This request was routed in an interdepartmental review. Addressing and Emergency Services commented that the address needs to be properly posted where the driveway intersects on the house and on the house. The address needs to be properly posted where the driveway intersects Whitetail Road and on the house facing the driveway. On January 5th, 2023, a violation was opened on the property for a vacation home rental without a conditional use permit. On January 9th, a violation letter was sent to the owners of the property. On January 26th, the owners applied for a conditional use permit to come into compliance. Staff recommended the applicant stop renting the property at that time. Staff performed a site visit on February 21st, 2023, and found smoke detectors in all the bedrooms, fire extinguishers on all the floors, and the sign and notification requirements were posted. Staff has received letters and signatures in opposition to the applicant's request, and they are attached to the staff report. With that, staff recommends approval of conditional use permit 23-05 with conditions.
Thank you, Megan. Questions for Megan?
I have a question. The Department of Health was filed on 1/30 of this year and the tax 2/1 of this year. How long has this place been operating without proper permits?
I'm unsure of how long it's been operating for. The owners are here in case they want to answer that.
Okay, well, when they come up, I'll ask, that's fine.
Okay.
Any other questions for Megan?
I have more of a question for Megan, probably. This homeowners association, or whatever it's called, has made it very clear in their covenants that they don't want businesses in this development. And I think just because an organization that was formed many, many, many years ago didn't use the specific words vacation home rental.
Yeah, so with covenants, the county doesn't enforce them. Our ordinance very clearly says that we may enforce them, and I've taken the legal stance of it's very imprudent for us to be the ones to enforce them. If the homeowners association wants to sue this person, they can certainly do that. They can hire their own counsel and pursue those methods. I can tell you that thus far that hasn't been super successful. Because there's a Supreme Court case that dealt specifically with a vacation home rental. But, obviously they can always hire an attorney and pursue those methods on their own. It's just, I don't think it's a good idea for the county to get involved in interpreting covenants because it's really complicated.
If the homeowners association chose to sue Pennington County because we approved it, no, that wouldn't happen.
But they could, but I don't think that there would really be any right of action, so.
Thank you. I'll
Megan,
just say I won't be
go ahead.
supporting this because of the information we have from the people that live there.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
So, multiple times within this body, we have told people that if they want to be able to prevent vacation home rentals within their area, that they need to set up the covenants in order to do that. I believe that that was the intent of this, this division, this subdivision. And I think that if we don't support those covenances, then we are being somewhat facetious in telling people, get covenances and we'll help protect you, versus just approving VHRs in an area that clearly had a covenants that they didn't want that type of a business there.
Yeah, and I think I should clarify that it's not we will protect you, it's that the courts will protect you, because we are not the courts. We are administrative bodies, and it's not really our place to be making determinations of what covenants mean. So that's the issue, because you guys don't have the legal training in order to make a determination on what a legal document really says. So it gets very complicated very quickly. I can tell you that there's already at least one South Dakota Supreme Court that has said that VHRs are not a commercial purpose. So, as I said, it's very, very complicated, and I would very much prefer, as your legal counsel, that you guys don't get involved in interpreting covenants, because you really don't have the authority to do so. Not by state statute. That's really the courts.
Thank you, Megan.
Yep.
I'm going to kind of nip that in the bud. I'd like to hold that for discussion. We're on questions for Megan right now, and I'd like to stay with that. Megan, any other questions for Megan? If not, would it be all right if we hold your applicant to the end? We do have a couple of people that would like to speak on the matter. I do have two requests. All right, and then and I'm sure you've got it for your records, we also received an email, let's see. Oh, I guess it went to you, Megan. Okay, and it is a petition listed below as a voice opposition conditional use permit of a Hamel property, 12315 Whitetail Road, Deadwood, South Dakota, 57732. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 signatures on it.
Is that,
And we do have that for our record. I just wanted to note it for the people that are in the audience and that are watching us. We do have that, and each commissioner has received that for his file.
is that in addition to the signatures that were already submitted on the staff report?
I didn't go through and verify the signatures. I just wanted to verify that we did. This apparently was sent today. So that's why I wanted to make sure that the folks that were involved with this knew we did receive it, and each commissioner has it in his packet at this time, as well as you. So apparently it did get sent to you and Jerry, according to this. Yep, Jerry, Irvin, and Megan Talmadge. All right, we're going to go to our speaker request forms on this, and the first one is actually on Zoom right now. Jeannie? Can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
All right, please introduce yourself for the record and then go say what you've got to say.
I'm Jeannie Bush. I live in the neighborhood where the Hamel Cup is proposed, and I oppose it strongly. Our neighborhood has covenants, and I understand the legal comment that it's not your job to enforce them. I'm not asking you to enforce them. I'm asking you to respect them. And our neighborhood has been opposing vacation home rentals since prior to 2007, when the then illegal vacation home at 22521 Deer Meadow Drive operated. When this property was granted a CUP, after operating illegally for a long time, the board stated that we just don't know the intent of your covenants. I've provided in my written statement a copy of the notarized statement from the creator of the covenants that I acquired to verify that intent. So now our covenant intent is clear. We have zoning and covenants for a reason, and that's for our neighborhood, our community. In 2016, I addressed this board. My perspective is the same, plus even more adamant that a vacation home rental does not marry well with the intent of a stable neighborhood with homes close together. If you look at the layout of our neighborhood, it is very close. When you have lots of people coming in each weekend, it has a negative effect on our neighborhood. The problems that we've had with vacation home rentals continues because enforcement is lax. We can't get help on the weekends, and even the sheriff has denied helping us, me personally, twice. Let's look at Friday night. What are the top things on your mind that you're thinking about? Doing something fun with your family, long work, peace and quiet. For me and most of my neighbors, none of these come to mind. Instead, we're thinking, who will be at the vacation home rental this weekend? How many will there be? How many ATVs? How many snowmobiles? How much noise will there be? Will we have to call the sheriff again? Will they trespass on our property? Which is what we have the most of from vacation home rentals, is trespassers. And it goes on and on. And does this sound like a neighborhood that you want to live in? Put yourself in my home, in my experiences, along with the board not respecting the covenants that I abide by. Again, I'm not asking you to enforce them. I'm asking you to respect them. Along with this, it's the enforcement that is so lacking. And PJ, who we dealt with on the first cup, we just don't get the equal help that we need. And when our road district has to deal with the destruction of our road because of the additional use, because of either big trailers bringing in ATVs and things like that, they don't pay any more taxes than we do, so we don't get help in that way either. But one of my most frequent complaints has been trespassers. And in July of 2018, we contacted the undersheriff. He told us flat out that it's not in the interest of taxpayers to go after trespassers. And again, just this past Friday night, I talked with Deputy Jewell, Juhl, and he told me that he cannot help with trespassers. We were alerted by our security system. We are not there right now. He said, just no manpower. And yeah, I've written complaints. You can go back and look at the complaints that I've written. But the point is that we, the residents, should not have to police the businesses. If we're just stable residents, knowing one another, we don't have the weekend surprises. But we end up taking the fall for the decisions that allow a cup. And I think we the residents deserve equal rights. The enjoyment and safety of our neighborhood is paramount for us. Making money for one owner should not preclude the safety and well-being of the entire neighborhood. Look at the structure of our neighborhood. We're not far apart, even though that property has 2 acres. The realist in me says the cup is already a done deal. That saddens me greatly. But I'll go back to what my father always said, follow the money and you'll find your answers. The optimist in me says, maybe there's somebody here that might listen this time. We that respect and adhere to our covenants deserve the same consideration given as the cup applicant. The first time our neighborhood opposed a cup and then opposed the renewal based on issues we had, we were all here in unity. This time we're not, because so many said, we're tired of fighting. We don't feel heard. We've given up. We want a cohesive, stable neighborhood. If this cup is approved, there's precedence again, and in the coming months, we believe that the property next to the Hamels is most likely going to be in front of you too, because it just sold. And the people that we talked to on the road when they looked at it said, we're going to make it into a vacation home rental. So if they choose to start legally, that will be in front of you in maybe a month or two. So if that's approved, 20% of our neighborhood would then be vacation home rentals. And that's not what our community is about. Please don't make this bad situation into an even worse one. We're a suburban residential zone neighborhood with covenants. We've tried to do everything right. And even though your legal advice says you don't have any You don't have any stance. The law review on the Supreme Court case severely divides that decision was wrong. If you want a copy of the law review of it, I'd be happy to send it to you. My rights and that of the neighborhood matter. Please represent me too, not just the CUP applicant. Yes, they have rights, but we have rights too. I hope we have the same wisdom on this board as the Gary, Indiana Council. The president, William Godwin, captured my thoughts absolutely spot on. We don't want to kill economic development, but we also don't want to kill community. I oppose this CUP. Thank you.
Questions for Jeannie? Jeannie, I have one. Since they were submitted for our packet, and we do have a copy of them, the reservations and deed and covenants, I can't figure out when they were established. Do you have any idea what the date, the recorded date, or is each one individual based upon the particular title and deed?
I don't know that exactly. I can tell you when my in-laws purchased this property would have been in 1981. And they were not the first purchasers in the neighborhood. I believe that they were the third. So it would be in that time frame.
Okay, thank you. I just couldn't find it in any recorded part of the submission that was given us, and I just was interested in knowing when they were initially recorded or whether they were individually recorded. Thank you for your answer.
It's in our deed, so that has followed us. We purchased the property from my in-laws in 2011. So it's in our deed in that time, but the original, I believe, would have been in the 1980-81 era.
Okay, thank you, Jeannie. Any other questions for Jeannie before we move on? We do have another speaker, Janet Kim. Did I pronounce that right?
Pretty close.
Please introduce yourself just for the record and go ahead.
My name is Janet Kim. We own property in the Alpine Acres. We have since the early 1990s. Thank you for reading our opposition letter. You mentioned the petition. I didn't quite hear, but we did submit 18 names. I don't know if it all came through correctly, but based on the number of homes in our development, the majority of the Alpine Acres homes show opposition, and I wasn't able to contact everyone due to the limited time and weather. I would like an answer to that question regarding operation of vacation rental home prior to the CUP approval. I suspect many people, including many of us that signed the covenant, had been surprised to learn that vacation home rental is not considered a business. In addition, the use of vacation home rental advisors to run the day-to-day activity is questioned as a commercial activity. We bought our Alpine Acres property in the early 1990s, right after my husband's parents bought theirs. Since a covenant was signed at that time, and the covenant states the heirs and successors would follow the covenants, my question, is there a precedent that the covenants prior to the South Dakota Court decision about vacation rental homes are honored? And I do know that that Supreme Court case, in their covenant, it specifically said bed and breakfast was allowed. Our covenant does not. Vacation home rental was not common when the covenant was established. The developers, the Whitneys, showed their intent was for residential community prior to the South Dakota Supreme Court case. The original covenant has been followed through the years for no vacation rental property with the exception of the one home granted a CUP. And it had been discussed and people decided against it because of the CUP. We feel we currently have a residential community, the goal of the Whitneys, with the exception of the current vacation rental. The CUP greatly affects us and our community. This allows vacation rental on both sides of our property, along with vacation rental activity and strangers. Please do not grant this CUP. Thank you for your consideration.
Questions for Janet? Thank you. And one more, Paul Hammett?
Good morning. I appreciate y'all so much for listening to us. I live just a few feet outside. I live in Lawrence County. My fence line runs right up into that division. My folks lived next door for years. I moved up here in 1989, April of 1989. I was the command chief at Ellsworth, and I served in that capacity for the next 8 wing commanders with a small break. For 18 months, I was the environmental flight chief in the Civil Engineer Squadron during the mitigation process and those issues. And then I went to Mount Rushmore, and I was the safety and occupational health director at Mount Rushmore for 3.5 years before I fully retired. So I have a little different approach to it. We all love our neighbors, we're all close, but on the corner of my dad's property, which my mom is still living there, she's 96, I sold, as power of attorney, I sold that home to my brother-in-law and sister, and they now are caretakers for my mom until she passes. But on the corner of that property, on the front corner of that property, there is the old Cheyenne to Deadwood stagecoach spring. It runs right up Fawn Drive. It's probably an alternate route. They probably had more than one, but that spring is right there. And when we first moved up, for the first 10 years, we were in the middle of a drought. Some of y'all might remember that huge drought we had for about 10 years. And we had nothing but dry ground. The only spring that fed Jim Creek, which starts right there. Well, it actually comes across the road and comes down. It shows a different route for it, but that spring is the only thing that fed Jim Creek for about 3 years during that drought. And during that drought, the ground got so dry that the driveway cracked coming from my dad's house as it ran across Fawn Drive and ran up into that pasture that goes right straight toward this house that you're talking about. It actually runs behind that house. They're wanting to do this. That opened up, that crack opened up, and I crawled on my hands and knees with my dad and my son. And everywhere we found a crack, we would stick our ear down and listen. You could hear the water, the spring water running down that creek, and we tracked it all the way back to that crack. And what I have a concern about is that when you start bed and breakfasts and vacation homes where you're renting them out, you don't control those people. If it's going to sleep 10 people, they could show up with 2 trailers, they could be fueling ATVs, they could be fueling snowmobiles, all the things that are normal for the people that live there. I don't know anybody up in that area that has that type of equipment, but I do down below. But when those things start to happen, people on vacation, they get careless. We've had that happen before on the other side of the road in Alpine Acres. There's one over there, and those folks, we had many, many problems. That's in Lawrence County, so not y'all's problem. But there are already homeowners in there that were affected by that, and they see money. And as they get ready to sell their homes, we've already got 2 up there that are saying, well, we might as well just sell ours. We get more money if we sell for, to somebody that wants to start a vacation rental because they can make money after they spend the money. So my concern is twofold, that we're going to end up with a little community of vacationers that are going to be spreading not only the stuff that they do as they prepare. We don't know what they're going to do with how they clean the sidewalk. They're responsible for cleaning and getting stuff ready. Maybe not in this particular one, but in the other one. And we don't know what kind of cleaners they use, what type of environmental issues. And I'm not an environmentalist by any stretch of the imagination. I believe that everybody has their own responsibility and it's our job to take care of it. But I'm concerned that some of that contamination will get down into that spring, which is the water source for my parents, and it also goes right into Jim Creek, and it runs all the way down. We have some new neighbors that have Arabian horses. Their horses drink from that Jim Creek. Now, all those things put together, and we think there's long-term potential problems. So we just wanted you to consider it. I wanted you to consider that, and I thank you for your time. Any questions?
Questions for Paul? Thank you, Paul.
All right, thank you very much.
Anyone else would like to speak before the applicant? Okay, would the applicant like to speak, or their agent or representative? Just introduce yourself for the record and go right ahead.
Hi,
All-
I'm.
All three of you can speak.
We're working on it.
right.
I'm Madison Hamill,
I'm Joseph Hamill, and this is Leighton Hamill.
our daughter. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, we'd like to start by thanking you for your opportunity to speak on our behalf. We'd like to formally apologize, first and foremost, for falling out of compliance with our vacation home rental. We are grateful to share our side of the story and look forward to the opportunity to convince you of our intentions going forward. We hope that by the end, you will see our intent to follow the rules, be courteous members of our community, and eventually move our home and family to this great state. My husband and I have been fortunate enough to camp through the United States, from Maine to California. We have always shared a passion for the West. We love nature and wide open spaces. Being from the Midwest our entire lives, we notice a difference in the lifestyle and mindset of the Western population. Frankly, the people are nicer, life is a bit slower, and intentions appear to be genuine and heartfelt. Over the last 6 years, we have been on a mission to find the perfect place to raise a family. We first visited this region on our honeymoon. We fell deeply in love with the rolling hills and kind people. We had a grand adventure planned, but ended up switching our route to be able to come back through South Dakota a second time on our way home. It was all we could talk about. We had to go back and we couldn't wait. Since that day, we have been saving our money to buy our dream place in South Dakota. We have visited the Capitol, been to Sturgis, and check out the new display at the Corn Palace annually. We've explored Sioux Falls, counted wall drug signs, hiked Custer and Wind Cave, and camped everywhere from the Badlands to Mobridge. We've delighted in seeing successful crops and felt sadness for farmers when beetles took their sunflowers. For the past 3 years, we have made it our mission not to visit South Dakota, but to belong to it. We go to church when we are here. We get our family photos taken here. We try to make friends here. Some will say that people from the outside do not respect new places. That is not true of us. We take living here with serious gravity. In September, we were blessed to be able to locate and purchase this home. We bought it using a second home mortgage. To us, this was an investment in our future, not business. We knew that we would need to find a way to help cover property expenses, and so we specifically looked for a property that we could rent when we were not in the area. This was only to help offset expenses, not to provide us with a stream of income. We intend to be at the property as much as our schedules will allow. Since purchasing in September, we have personally spent over 7 weeks at our home. We are delighted with it. We love the location for so many reasons. Being central in the hills allows us to explore in all directions. We have 2 trailheads within 3.3 miles, allowing us to ride and explore, a lifelong hobby of ours. And to top it off, we are within walking distance to the Sugar Shack. Talk about an amazing location. Our primary home is in Pennington Hills, Michigan. I am a self-employed financial advisor, and my husband is a self-employed realtor. I have been in my business for 8 years, and he has been in his for 3. To move permanently at the moment is not feasible because we are not in the position to transfer our businesses just yet. Additionally, and more importantly, we have aging grandparents and parents that we still play a primary role in help care for. That being said, we did not want to wait any longer on getting a start in our dream location. When we were looking for homes, we hired a local realtor to help us with the search. Though my husband is a realtor in Michigan, he is not licensed here and only has 3 years of experience in the industry. We are the kind of people that trust an expert over ourselves when we do not know an area. When searching for homes, we always asked about vacation home capabilities. We did not want to be in violation of any rules and knew that we would not be able to afford a home at the moment that did not allow for the possibility of income generation. We also looked into South Dakota's rules on vacation home rental status and found under Supreme Court case Maynard versus Wilson that vacation home rentals are zoned residential use. Our realtor told us that there were no restrictions for vacation home rentals on this specific property. After the purchase, we hired a professional property manager, J&J Hospitality, to look after our property. With us being out of state, we felt this was absolutely essential to make sure the property was looked after, no disruption was caused to the community, and guests could have a good experience and taste for the state. After all, we were excited for others to get to experience the place we ourselves want to call home. Our property manager told us that nothing else was needed for the property based on our address, 12315 Whitetail Road, Deadwood, South Dakota. They were under the assumption that our Deadwood address put us in Lawrence County, where no permitting process was required. While our access road, Rockford Road, is in Lawrence County, our actual street is in Pennington County. All parties realized this a bit too late. On Monday, January 23rd, while in town to enjoy our home and snowmobile, we found the violation letter in our mailbox. On Thursday, January 26th, we came into the planning department to discuss necessary actions. The only thing that prevented us from coming in 2 days earlier was we had the flu. We immediately, with the help of Megan Talmadge from the planning department, set out to make things right. We contacted our property manager, and our property was immediately removed from all sites to use. On Monday, the 30th, 4 days after our initial meeting, we returned our completed packet to Megan. At that time, she was able to verify that our active listing was indeed removed. I was valedictorian of my high school. From kindergarten to 12th grade, I never once received a grade that was not an A. I am the first generation to attend college in my family, where I graduated magna cum laude from Miami University. I have never in my life received any type of traffic violation, not even a speeding ticket. My husband is an ISTJ personality type. If you look it up, you'll see it revolves around order and structure. I do not say this to brag, I say this to demonstrate. We are rule followers. We like rules. When we found this letter, we were horrified, embarrassed, and frankly disappointed in ourselves. Here we are trying to move our family to this state. This is the first impression that we made. Unacceptable. We have heard the concerns of our neighbors and have diligently combed through their letters of opposition, looking for ways we can assure them that our intentions are not malicious and our concerns for this neighborhood echo theirs. We would like to take a brief moment to address those concerns now. Number one, as previously stated, my husband is a realtor and we do not own any other short-term vacation rentals. This is not our primary business, and that is why we hired professional local property management. Number two, South Dakota Supreme Court's Wilson versus Maynard set legal precedents that vacation rental homes are residential, not commercial activity. It also set legal precedents that VHRs do not cause any out-of-ordinary nuisance that would be expected within a neighborhood. Receipt of income, in this case, is specifically stated that it does not transform residential use of property into commercial use. Therefore, we are not in violation of existing deed covenants. We also brought copies of the Wilson versus Maynard as well as the summaries that Jeannie mentioned. Number three, that being said, just because we're not in violation of the covenants does not mean that we're not aware of our community and our neighbors. We want our neighbors to know that disruptions to the neighborhood is a top concern for us as well. We look at pollution in three main categories and have addressed them each. The first is general pollution / trash. We have installed 3 large trash cans at the property to ensure trash is properly disposed of. In addition to the 3 large receptacles, we also have 4 additional small trash cans placed throughout the home. Guests are made aware of where trash is supposed to go upon check-in, check-out, and on the refrigerator at our home. In the event that trash will become an issue, we also have a regular cleaner that will get rid of any excess trash immediately. We can monitor this through the Ring doorbell installed wide angle on the front of our home. The second type of pollution is light pollution. We are avid night sky fans, and we would like to ensure that our home does not pollute the dark sky. We have replaced all outdoor fixtures with downward-facing fixtures so that light will not be dispersed into the sky. And C, lastly, we looked at noise pollution. We know this is a hot topic and something that can be hard to monitor if not properly prepared for. This is why we have purchased noise-aware software and annual subscription for the property. This software monitors the noise levels in the home and alerts us real-time when noise levels go beyond set decibel thresholds. These thresholds can be customized for quiet hours. As soon as levels go beyond the threshold, guests are immediately texted to mitigate the issue. If they do not bring down the noise, our property manager will address them in person. This is to help us prevent noise before it is an issue. Additionally, the software is designed to detect parties and violations of the occupancy set, which is 6, based on the DNR's letter of approval. Number 4, as homeowners, it has been addressed in the letters that we are not paying taxes. As homeowners, we will indeed be paying our normal taxes on the property. Additionally, taxes are collected through the rental sites and forwarded accordingly. Sales tax is also paid on those that stay in our home. A copy of our sales tax permit has been provided. For our neighbors that believe that we are not paying taxes, we would like to assure them that we are. In fact, those that visit this state are as well. According to the Economic Impact of Tourism in South Dakota study completed in 2022, visitors spent $4.7 billion in South Dakota last year. Tourism generated 11% of the state's sales tax collections. Over 58,000 jobs in this state are supported by tourism. And lastly, if it were not for tourism in the state, each South Dakota household would pay an additional $1,011 in taxes. Not only are we indeed paying our share of taxes, those visiting are also paying taxes and stimulating the economy. Number 5, there have been, on at least 3 occasions to our property, 1 or more long trailers and multiple vehicles. They were legally parked on our property and they did contain multiple UTVs and or snowmobiles. I know this without a shadow of a doubt as those vehicles and trailers belong to us. We reserve the right as homeowners to bring UTVs and snowmobiles to our home, which we specifically purchased due to its location between 2 major trailheads. During our time at our home, we were not loud, disrespectful, trespassers, or in violation of common courtesy. The next time that these trailers are spotted, which will be frequent, we welcome neighbors to come over and introduce themselves. We would love to formally meet. Number 6, since purchasing our home on the 1st of September, we have spent over 7 weeks at our property. We did not begin renting until the 23rd of November and pulled our property from the market as soon as we received notice of the violation. We have been at our home in person for more days than our home was available to rent, let alone rented. The party atmosphere every weekend, with multiple trailers coming and going every day, does not belong to us or our home. It would seem these statements are either an egregious over-exaggeration or the consequence of someone else. We will only ever be able to address factual information. Fabricated truths are neither helpful or constructive. Number 7, the majority of written complaints came from neighbors that are not even within 500 feet of our home. Additionally, those visiting our home do not pass by or near theirs on the way in and out to the main road. Secondly, the majority of written complaints are from other part-time residents who admittedly use their property as a second home. Their concerns over not knowing what is going on at their home when they are not there is a concern all people, ourselves included, face when we leave a property vacant. There is always going to be a risk associated with a property that you are not in. We are simply trying to enjoy a second home, the same way that they are enjoying a second home. And finally, lastly, for our character intent, this is something that we'll only be able to prove to our neighbors over time. We are always open to visitors and conversation. Though we believe in their right to voice concerns to the board, we can also tell them that we are reasonable and warm people. Many of their concerns could have been handled face-to-face, which seemingly would have saved us all several nights of rest. In the future, before you think we are attempting fraud, we would love to have a chat over coffee in our home where you are welcome. I could say that we were led astray by our realtor and property manager and that we trusted them as local experts. While this is true to some extent, it is not an excuse worth using. This is our home. We own it. We are responsible for it. We let our hearts and the fun of owning our dream home get in the way of our heads. We should have done better research. We are to blame for this, and it was with the utmost sincerity we'd like to offer our apologies. It goes without saying that we would never make this mistake twice. We will be diligent to follow all rules in the future. We will also graciously accept all fines that may accompany our tardiness on this matter. This will not be the last time that you see us in a meeting. When we get here full-time, we plan to become active, generous, and helpful members of the community. However, when you see us again, it will not be for violation. We will be volunteering or contributing in some other positive way. We are asking for approval of the CUP on our vacation home rental based on our compliance with the requirements set forth by the Planning Department and immediate action when in violation. This is supported by the Planning Department's recommendation for approval. This would allow us to enjoy our great state as much as we can and start our transition to full-time residency. We vow to stay in compliance, be respectful to our community and neighbors, and always represent the county and state well. Thank you for your time. We welcome any and all questions.
Thank you, Madison. Questions for Madison? Go ahead, Mike.
You and Leighton, when are you planning on moving out here?
When we would like to move out here?
Yeah. I mean, our overall plan.
Ideally, we keep working off of a 3 to 7 year plan, and that just depends on grandparents and parents.
Yeah.
But let's just say this. We want more kids if we're so blessed, and we would really love if some of those kids were born in South Dakota.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Madison?
Mr. Chair.
Joseph, go ahead.
So, as I understand it, then the first time you rented this property was on November 23rd?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you stopped renting it as a when?
As soon as we heard violation, but we were in the house when we heard violation. So after we stopped, we took it off the market on January 23rd.
Okay, thank you.
Or maybe January 26th, but it was the day that we came into the planning department.
We text our property manager and asked them,
Immediately
get
take
it off, shut it off.
Okay. So, when you were looking at the property, obviously when you purchased it, you knew that it was in Pennington County. But when you were looking at it, you thought it was in Lawrence County? Is that what I understood?
Yeah, we didn't.
We were oblivious to the fact of county when we purchased it. We didn't, again, read through every single thing when we were signing off. And to us, in Michigan, everything is governed by the city, not the county. So to
All your
us,
permits
we
and
looked at
everything go through the city.
Deadwood, Lawrence, Deadwood, and assumed as such. Only then, after January, did we really learn it's Pennington who's
I see. Okay.
issuing all this.
Okay.
We're really, and this is not an excuse, but we really truly are right on the line. As you heard a neighbor say, they're Lawrence County. We even had a neighbor tell us that when she went to pay property taxes, she went into Pennington. They told them, she's our neighbor, she's in Pennington. Pennington told them to go to Lawrence. Lawrence told her to go to Pennington. And then she ended up having to call them both again and figure out where to forward property taxes because they weren't sure about the line. Which is not an excuse, it's just we really are right on the line of Lawrence County.
Okay. So had this been used as a vacation home rental to your knowledge prior to your purchase?
Not to our knowledge, no.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have, Chairman.
Thank you. Anything else to add, Joseph?
No, not at this time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Chair would address a motion on this one way or the other so that we can open it to some discussion. There's several of you that had some thoughts you wanted to voice. Anybody care to make a motion? We certainly are eligible to discuss other than that, but.
Sure, for discussion, I'll move to approve CU 23-05.
Second.
Moved and second to approve CU 23-05 per staff's recommendation with 15 conditions. Discussion.
I'll just make a few bullet points. I lived in a community, or still live in a community, that we had covenants that the issue came up, this is years ago, and we're told the same thing, that, the covenants are there, but in order to really do anything, you have to sue the individual. It's not really a county obligation to address those issues. It's a legal issue. I don't know if it's something that maybe we should do, because we've got a vacation home rental policy coming up here, another hearing in a week or so. If we would continue this, because I have a lot of feelings on vacation home stuff. I think that sometimes the county overreaches. I think that we need to put more responsibility on the owners versus the tenants that are there. If they have bad tenants, they need to be taken care of. And, maybe there's something that will come up that you have a couple, 3 things, and your CUP is not in effect anymore. We have a number of things that we're going to be speaking about on these vacation home rentals. Because I think there are good vacation home renter owners out there that maintain the property exceptionally well, and there are others that don't, and I think the others that don't are the ones that we need to address. So that's just a couple of my thoughts on this.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Second, Kevin. Go ahead.
As a immigrant to this state as well, I came from another place where people's property rights weren't taken into too strong of an account, and there were covenances on some property that in a neighborhood that I lived on that actually helped protect my area, my personal residence there. One of the reasons I moved here was because of the freedom and the ability of people to have personal responsibility on their property and ability to do what they want with their land. I believe land ownership is a very sacred item, and it's not up to the neighbors to control what people do with their property unless there are covenances in place. I understand it's not our responsibility to enforce covenances with this body. So I'm really torn on this one. I'm seeing both sides of this picture very well. I do really appreciate the couple of the owners and their seemingly very sincere presentation that they gave. I also feel for the homeowners that are in this area that believe they had an established covenants that would help protect it. I also have a lot of very strong feelings on the vacation home rental. I think on the policy that we're reviewing, I believe that there is some overreach there for personal property. I believe that there are some things that should be there to help protect the neighborhood and the neighbors. The one piece of information I saw on this that has me starting to be concerned is I really like the idea of people being able to use their property, but when the density becomes such in a neighborhood that the majority of it starts becoming vacation home rentals, I think that's a line we need to somehow formulate within this vacation home rental policy, solely for the protection of the neighborhood. So those are just kind of my thoughts, my train of thinking on that. Hopefully I didn't confuse the whole issue.
Anyone else like to weigh in? I'm not often here, but I'm in Megan's department here. One of the things is that road districts, water companies, even homeowners association, this particular one doesn't, that I see have a homeowners, I don't know. I didn't pick it up in the way the packet was put together. But there's a lot of individual requirements of covenants that are reviewed from a legal viewpoint. One, how long have they been in existence and reviewed? How have they been enforced? This sort of thing. There's so many things that are out of our bailiwick. I think we have to set them to the side. They're a different department. It's unfortunate. But we have an ordinance that's written that involves individual property owners' rights. And certainly the people that oppose these things have a right to stand up and speak and oppose those things and expect their covenants, which we don't control, to stand behind them. So I'm just saying, I think we need to stay within the category of those things. We're a legal entity under the Board of Commissioners for Pennington County. We need to stay within what we're supposed to be doing. Certainly, there's people that are being sold property that are not being totally advised of the situation in regards to that property. I believe the realtors are working to try to solve some of those problems by getting longer and longer documents that you have to, I believe, legally swear to now, I think, is the signature. I haven't looked at one recently. So that's my input on this. We've got to do this, and you've got to do these things and hope that people can understand and that we get people that recognize the other people's property rights that are in a different category. In other words, and those categories are covenants. We don't deal with covenants, never have dealt with covenants. We've been advised long before Megan came forward that. And I believe the Board of Commissioners are told the same thing. Is that correct, Gary?
Yes, it is.
It's just something that's come down the pike, and that's our responsibility as a legal entity. Unfortunately, we're not a court. We can certainly have a lot of empathy for those folks that have them. Like Kevin said, it's coming up more and more. So that's all I've got to say. Anyone else from the audience that wants to speak, I certainly would allow you to do so without a speaker request form. We try to make sure everybody can say what they've got to say before we vote. Any other discussion from the commission? Jim, are you still with us?
I am indeed, Charlie.
Good. All right, hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Are you comfortable with recording that, Jerry?
Yep, that's
Okay.
one no.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, folks, for taking the time to come in and talk to us. We're on to item number 14.
Hello, I'm Kelsey Roush, Planning Department. Item number 14. Brittany can get the presentation up for me. Okay, item number 14 is conditional use permit 2303 to allow a vacation home rental on the subject property. The applicant and owner is Gerald and Julie Burdick. The local contact is Jordan Hirschfeld. The location is 8003 Croyle Avenue, and the lot size is 1.54 acres, and it is zoned suburban residential district. The property owner actually lives next door to the subject property. Staff, their criteria reviewed. The zoning ordinance lists 7 criteria that the Planning Commission may consider in their review. I will read the findings. No, a vacation home rental takes place entirely within the existing residence. Oops. Oops, sorry. The requested use should not be detrimental or endanger the health, safety, or general welfare of the public. No, a VHR is considered a residential use. This requested use should not change the residential use of the property or have any long-term negative effects on the use and enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity. No, the requested use should not affect the normal, orderly development or improvement of any surrounding property in the area. Yes, all necessary utilities are in place. Yes, access is off of Croyle Avenue via an existing approach. The requested use should not significantly affect the traffic congestion. Yes, the property is zoned suburban residential district. An approved CUP is required to operate the VHR in this zoning district. And yes, the future land use is suburban residential district. Allowing this CUP would be consistent with the current comprehensive plan. The property has an existing single-family residence. It was a 4-bedroom built in 1976 per Department of Equalization records. In 2001, the property owner got a building permit for a detached garage. In 2022, the property owner remodeled the basement garage into a bedroom and remodeled an existing basement bedroom into a laundry room and mudroom. The property owner did upgrade the septic tank from a 1,000-gallon tank to a 1,500-gallon tank in 2022 to meet the minimum standards for 4 bedrooms in the property. Interdepartmental review, the Rapid City Public Works said that the 4-bedroom septic system should be able to handle 8 regular occupants. I don't know how that transfers to a vacation rental property. It appears DANR has approved it as is, and we, the city, do not have any additional requirements that need to be met at this point. The property owner is currently working with the highway department to get the approach approved. The existing culvert is too small, and so they are working on that actively. They met with highway department a couple days ago on, I think, Thursday or Friday. So there is a plan in place for that. The property is not currently 100% finished. They're remodeling and doing some upgrades to the windows and so forth, as you can see in the pictures. It's not up on a website or anything yet. They're just waiting to get this approval. We have not heard of any complaints that I am aware of from any of the property owners. And do you have any questions for me?
Questions for Kelsey? Kelsey, I got two quick ones. One is your applicant here, that I know you're
I do
remote.
believe Julie, yes,
Okay.
Julie should be in the audience,
Because I
yes.
don't get, we don't have a speaker request form for applicants. The second one is this within the jurisdiction of Rapid some way?
Yes, it's in the 1 mile septic jurisdiction of Rapid City.
Okay. All right. Anything else for Kelsey while we've got her? She'll certainly stay with us. All right, I've got a speaker request form on this. Brett? And I can't. Brett, if you'd introduce yourself just for the record and go ahead and go from there.
My name's Brett Whitby. I own the house immediately adjacent to the north of this house. My property borders this place for over 400 feet.
All right.
And the neighbors sent a certified letter. I don't know, I got a little pink slip in my deal that said we weren't home and they'd bring it back later, and I stayed home for several days. Never got it, and then last Friday it was just stuck in my mailbox and with no certification. I mean, never ever did sign for it, but so I haven't had much time to study this issue, and these guys aren't done with their house yet and stuff, and I think you guys should maybe postpone this at least until after the new ordinance hearing. But if that's not acceptable, I do have some issues. Safety issues. Me and my wife have 3 daughters. One's currently the current Miss South Dakota, and my youngest daughter's only 9. And we do have some safety concerns, about having possibly, 8 people a night for 365 days a year. That's 2,910 strangers, and our current ordinances, I think you guys should include, like, background check on all the renters that come in. It's available free on the internet and the federal website. Put people's name in, stuff. And your current ordinances, it's pretty much a one-way street, promote the people, but what do you do to protect the neighbors? I mean, you have, says like, we may, after repeated offenses, do something, I mean, so you guys need something hardcore, like, if this happens, shut down. I mean, I don't know if all you guys have family and kids and is your neighbor and stuff, but I've had problems in the past with my neighbors, kids like coming and peeking in the windows and stuff bothering my kids, and that's just with a few people. I don't need thousands of people being my neighbor and having to worry about my children and stuff. And I'm out of town a lot. We farm up in north central South Dakota. I stay up there, and then I do catastrophe insurance adjusted in different states, and I worry about my family and protection, and I want to know, what's going to happen. And as far as your ordinances, I mean, you guys need something to say something hardcore when if we have problems with noise, disturbing the peace, vandalism, trespass, and harassment, you need to say, this is what we're gonna do. We're not gonna say we may do something after repeated offenses and stuff like that. You guys have no plans for that. And there's getting to be too many of these vacation rentals. We bought this house 15 years ago. It's the quietest because it was a quiet neighborhood, peaceful. I mean, we didn't buy it to be neighbors to a bunch of strangers every night. I mean, neighborhoods are for neighbors, not strangers. I mean, and all your ordinances so far have pretty much been one way, like what can we do to have this stuff? What are you going to do to protect the neighbors from this? I worry about my kids. I mean, I like my neighbors, but I like my kids more. And what benefit is it to the county to allow all these? I mean, you guys don't have a tax or anything, so you don't get no money. What benefit is it to the neighbors? There is none. It's only to this individual landowner. I mean, this is getting to be a problem in this county. I mean, so I guess that's all I really have to say. I mean, you guys, I'd like to at least postpone this until we get to review it and study it, and until these guys get their house done and all their permits in order. You guys don't need to blank stamp every one that comes in. The cities of Custer and Hill City, I've read, I took it to a public vote and banned them. I mean, what if it comes to a vote in Pennington County? It would be banned. Thank you.
Just a second, Brett. Questions for Brett? Mike?
In this particular case, from what I understand, the owners live next to this vacation home rental.
They live on the other side.
You know, to me, that's a little more of a safety feature than the normal remote vacation home rental. Not that something can't happen, but you're going to have a little more hands-on because that person is interested in, you know, keeping that property in one piece. You know, anything can happen, but I think you're in a little better shape because of that.
Well, they couldn't keep their own children from bothering my children a few years back. I mean, knocking on the windows, peeking in the windows at my daughters and stuff like that. So how are they going to keep over 2,900 strangers a year from doing that?
Good question. We've lived in a Hill City since '79, or in our property since '79. Vacation home rentals just down the street from us. So far, nobody's peeked in the window.
If ever, I mean, okay.
You know,
We've had that problem.
Yep, I'm sure you have.
And what, I mean, you guys gonna come in the sheriff, I mean, we got a problem, you guys gonna do anything? I mean, come out, sheriff gonna come out, or what, or?
That's the plan. How it works is something else.
Brett? What happens if it's a disturbance to the neighborhood? What are you gonna do about it? I mean, if one of my children or wife's injured or hurt by one of these strangers, trust me, I'm going to personally hold Pennington County responsible.
Okay, Brett, just a comment here. Kelsey, Brett indicated regarding the mailing, is that something you were aware of?
No. The notices were sent prior to the indicated date. They were sent in time before they needed to be, and the sign was posted on time.
Have the copies been returned?
Yep, I have them right
Okay.
here, actually.
Did we sign for it?
No, because they're not requested to, they're not supposed to be,
Right.
they're just
Certified delivered.
have the certificate, the mailing. We don't do the green receipts anymore, so.
Why didn't the guy leave it the first time then? He just left the deal and the deal said he delivered it another time or whatever.
The mailman, Brett, you're
the
talking the mailman?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to address, the new ordinance does address some additional enforcement that we're working on right now in regards to vacation home rental. It does include additional, what would I say, exposure and some funding availability. And it's a long way from getting to the commissioners, so our meeting is what, March 4th at 4 p.m. And it does have some of those things that you brought up in there.
Okay, I haven't seen it yet. I tried.
Right.
So before you approve anything, I think that we should move this ahead until we've had time to review it and stuff.
Okay. You're stating, and I wrote that down there, that you're asking that you would rather see this continued.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Brett, so you live at 7907, is that your address?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So your house really is right up against, I mean.
Yeah,
very
we
close to-
we border that property for over 400 feet, and my house is only about, probably not even 100 feet to the north of this.
Okay. So, and this has not been used, the neighbor's house has not been used as a rental before?
They use it for rental, but a year-long lease, and you know, they had
Okay, so long-term rental.
They've had two old couples in there for a year apiece and then one young family, and, they're good neighbors, I mean, but we, I mean, I'm concerned. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really my wife and kids because I'm gone a lot, and then they're not gonna, I mean, it bothers them.
Okay, thank you, Brett.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Chair would like to do the same thing on this, get a motion so that we can open a discussion at the table up here.
I'd make a motion that we pass this agenda item.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve per staff's recommendation CU 23-03 with 16 conditions. Is that correct, Kelsey? 16?
Let's see.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, 16. Mhm.
Discussion.
Just a question, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Will you guys go out and do another inspection or an inspection once they're done with their construction work on it before the CUP is actually?
Yes. Yes, I actually already been in contact with them about getting more pictures after they are completely finished. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Kelsey, the applicant, or other?
Just one other thing, I've actually been in working with Mr. Burdick since I want to say October, November, when he first came in and tried to get started with everything. He wanted to be, on top of everything that he needed to do to be able to do this. He's working, they're upgrading everything. He just wanted to be on the right side of the law, and he knew that he needed to get all this stuff done first. So he's been in contact with me. We've had multiple meetings, met on the site a couple times. He's been a very, very good applicant for one of these vacation home rentals. So I just wanted to get that out there.
Thank you, Kelsey. Anyone from the audience, the applicant, would like to speak? Any additional discussion from the commission? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to item number 15.
Okay, item 15 is a conditional use permit 2304 to live in a recreational vehicle while building a single-family residence on the subject property. Applicants and property owners are Robert and Colby Reese. The location is south of intersection of East Highway 44 and Antelope Creek Road along Dancing Wolf Road. The lot size is 40 acres. It's flat, open prairie, agriculture district. It is vacant of any structures. The access is off Dancing Wolf Road, which is newly named road. The criteria reviewed. The ordinance lists 7 criteria. I will read the findings. Know that allowing this conditional use permit should not be detrimental or endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare of the public, especially considering the temporary nature of the applicant's request. No, the requested use should not have any long-term negative effects on the enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity. Staff cannot predict the effect of the property value in the neighborhood. No, allowing this conditional use permit should not affect the normal orderly development or improvement of any surrounding property in the area, considering the temporary nature of the applicant's request. The request is not intended to be a permanent use. Yes, access is off of Dancing Wolf Road. The applicant is planning to install an on-site wastewater treatment system as soon as possible. The living in the RV while a residence is being built should not impact traffic congestion. Yes, the property is zoned agriculture district. Living in an RV while building a residence is allowed with an approved CUP. Yes, the future land use of the subject property is agriculture district. Allowing this conditional use permit should be consistent with the current comprehensive plan. Property history, there are no building permits. There's no buildings located on the property. No septic has been installed yet. There is a county section line construction permit that is open right now. The roads are still being built by the original property owner prior to this property owner. The interdepartmental review, County Highway Department stated an approach permit must be filed and approved by Highway Department if the access for the parcel is taken from the section line. The north property line is a section line. No other major comments or concerns were received. In speaking with the applicant, he is unsure on the timeline of when construction will commence for the proposed single-family residence. Therefore, staff felt that a conditional use permit would be more appropriate than a special permitted use. There is no junk or debris on the property. The applicants live in Arizona. Their house in Arizona is currently for sale, but they haven't had any movement there yet, so they haven't been able to move up here. What do you have any questions for me?
Questions for Kelsey?
Mr. Chair.
Go right ahead.
Kelsey, one question on condition 8. 58 foot, is that the normal setback for section?
So the north property line is a section line, so therefore there's a 58-foot section line, so there's 33 feet of section line right-of-way on their property, and then there's a 25-foot setback to the section line. So it's 58 feet from the section line
Okay, thank you.
itself. Yep.
Anything else for Kelsey? Kelsey, just one for me, your condition number 3. And I just wanted to note for the record, I still oppose that. I think folks that want to live and build their places still should put in their septic so that the on-site wastewater treatment's there while they're living in the RV. So just wanted to note that. I know we approve them without that, but it just seems if they're going as far to build, it's time to go ahead and commit and get the thing handled rather than us wondering whether people are coming by, picking it up, or disposing of it. Any other questions for Kelsey? Go ahead.
I was just going to say,
Condition 3 just allowed that, and then later on it talks about that. Number 5, I think, is you've got a condition in there that until it's approved, that it has to be hauled.
I don't think they're planning on moving up here prior to the septic being installed. He is very adamant that he's going to get that septic installed as soon as possible. They do not have a timeline on when they're coming up here yet. So he said that's the first thing on his list is to get the septic installed. Right now, I mean, with the weather being as it is, we can't do perks. The ground is frozen. So we're just kind of waiting on the ground to thaw out, I think is.
Thank you. I have a speaker request form. Mr. Hall, Pat.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name's Pat Hall, and I'm the property owner of the overall area, which has an interesting background. That property was the major ranch of 3 ranches that was used in the filming of Dances with the Wolves. And so what we are developing is 40-acre properties that we have sold. There's been a great deal of interest. I think we have 2,800 acres there. We've sold 1/3 of them. And we do have covenants. You do have the ability to put conditions on your approval. And I want to discuss that a little with you. But before we discuss the conditions, this buyer from Arizona is a repurchase. I had nothing to do with the transaction, although I'm in the real estate business and I'm selling the property. It was a resale. I don't have their name and number. And part of the conditions of the covenant, which I'm sure they've read, are that they control or that they contact the Architectural Control Committee, of which I'm one of the 2 people, to discuss what they want to do. So what I'd like to ask, I have not been able to locate a phone number for these folks, and I was hoping maybe that the county would have it, and that first I would like to ask you if you would extend this, give me the opportunity to talk with them so that we know what their intent is. I'm very concerned about approving a permit to allow them to put a home on it when they don't know when they're going to build. we're not in the intention, and all the buyers know that, motorhomes or temporary living quarters are only to be allowed during construction. So the fact if you just put a septic tank and a drain field in and you move your trailer home onto it, you can live in that as long as, I guess, the CUP would permit it. I would want the, ask as a condition, and I'd like to discuss this with the folks, is that you can't move your living quarters on there until you've obtained a building permit and started construction. You know, that's the intent of allowing that temporary home on there. I mean, it makes no sense to me to say, hey, you can move a motor home on and live there while you're building a house. And you don't tell them when they've got to start building the house. But if I could have the opportunity to talk with these people, maybe we can work through those conditions and be in agreement. I'm a firm believer that's the best approach rather than coming before you folks. I just haven't had an opportunity. So my question would be, do you happen to have a contact for those folks that I could call them?
Yes, we could get that for you.
Okay,
to give that to
excellent.
Brittany.
Yes, and the state's attorney's office is checking to see what we can give. We do have their address, so you could at
Yeah.
least mail them.
Sure, and if I can call, or if you can call and just ask, I mean, I want to cooperate and help these people, but there's other people that we've got to make sure we treat right also, huh? So again, if you'd allow me to continue this so I can have the opportunity to come and sit for a couple hours to wait and talk to you, I'm more than happy to do that.
Thanks, Ben. Just a question. Is your group still own the contiguous properties, or adjacent properties?
Well, no,
Or are there other owners already?
There's other owners that are border it. They're
Okay.
not aware of this, but I own 2/3 of that property yet.
All right. Yes, the controlling interest in
So there's, yeah,
your
we're
covenants.
very, and I think we can work this out. I just don't want people to start moving in and living in trailer homes, and you don't want that either.
Okay, and then the second one would be, is you are aware, and certainly as business, we are limited as to what information we can provide to you just
Yes,
on the spur of the moment. We have to go through certain channels and
They can
contacts.
call the people and ask
Okay.
them, certainly. I just want to try to have some time to work it out. If we can't, I'll be back.
Okay.
But if you're in favor of doing that, I'd appreciate it. If not, then I would ask that you'd put a contingency in there that they cannot move on or occupy the property until they've obtained a building permit, so we know they're sincere, and that they've started construction, which means you're digging the footings, not just putting in a septic tank.
Okay, questions for Pat? Thank you, Pat.
Thank you for the consideration. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Go right ahead.
continuance till the next meeting?
Let's see, this is Kelsey's. Hey,
Yes.
do you want to, you know what the date is?
It's March 13th.
So we can have it in the motion?
It's March 13th.
March 13th, Gary, is what you're requesting? Is there a second to that
I'd move for
motion?
continuance of this item until March
Right.
13th.
Is there?
Second.
Moved and seconded to continue to March 13th, meeting of the Planning Commission. Discussion.
I don't
From
think
the
those,
audience.
I don't think those conditions are tough to go by. I think that that's appropriate for a continuance.
Okay, questions, anyone from the audience would like to discuss before we act on it? Additional discussion from the commission? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to, let's see, we got 16.
Cody Sack, environmental planner. Item 16 is rezone RZ 23-01. It's to rezone 11.69 acres from agriculture district to low density residential district. The applicant is Jamie Gerlach. Staff is going to recommend to continue rezone RZ 23-01 to the March 13th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting, as a comprehensive plan amendment is required prior to a rezone, and that comprehensive plan amendment will be heard on the March 13th meeting.
Questions for Cody? Anyone here that would like to speak on this matter in the audience? It's the rezone, 23-01. Chair to address a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve staff recommendation to continue rezone RZ 23-01 to the March 13th meeting.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. To continue this per staff's recommendation, continue rezone RZ 23-01 to the March 13th meeting. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to number 17.
Item 17 is mining permit MP 23-01. It's to allow an aggregate mining operation on the subject property. The applicant is Western Construction. The landowner is Merritt Patterson and Sons. Access is off Trask Road. There is no special flood hazard area on the property. Current zoning is agriculture district. This was routed around for interdepartmental review. The highway department requests that an approach permit must be filed with the highway department. A haul road agreement must be in place, and dust control solution approved by the highway department superintendent must be applied in front of any residence between the mine site and Cedar Beat Road. Those were made conditions of approval, and those were forwarded to the applicant, who responded with a plan to get with the highway department to address those conditions. County addressing is going to require a address to be posted, which is also a condition of approval. And the county environmental planner for septic states that the applicant must provide one self-contained toilet on site, one per 50 employees, and that the self-contained toilets must meet all state and county regulations, including setbacks, and the method and schedule for disposal of solid waste in compliance with state and local regulations must be provided by the applicant in writing. That was also made a condition of approval. For the property, it involves 320 acres. Currently, it's vacant land. Approximately 2,000 tons will be excavated daily, which is approximately 50 truckloads, and the area disturbance is 4 acres. Project will begin sometime in 2023. The applicants are current on their mine license with the South Dakota Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources. Haul roads, the main haul road is Trask Road. Best management practices will include sediment basins, berms, rough and slope, and ground surface, and other appropriate means. The mined area will be backfilled with overburden and will be contoured to restore natural features. Topsoil will be spread in prepared area and reseeded and returned to prairie or cropland. So with that, staff is recommending approval of mining permit MP 23-01 with conditions.
Questions for Cody?
I have one, and probably not much of anything. When you look at the drainage on this map that you've got, you have a settling pond. When it's done settled and it goes out, it goes on some neighbor's land. Is that a running creek of any sort, dry creek, or?
Not that I'm aware of, and I believe that the applicants own, or the landowners who owns this property owns the land, most of the land surrounding that.
There should be no problem with that.
There shouldn't be any problems, no.
Any other questions for Cody? I've just got one quick one. When the haul agreement goes through the highway department per our ordinances, I think it's the subregs that defines that. And usually the two biggest problems are if we have complaints on these sort of things, it involves dust control, dust abatement, and holes or potholes in the road. Is that like on the site so they know who to contact, like if a neighbor's unhappy, or do they call you? How do they do that, Cody?
So they can call us or they can call the highway department. So the highway department will work on getting that haul road agreement, and I believe that goes in front of the Board of Commissioners for approval. I believe it's been a long time since we've done a haul road agreement.
So they know to come back this direction if they have a disagreement with the dust or mud, whatever, I guess, on the road from hauling, right?
Correct, yeah. And the applicants, like I said, I sent those comments to them, and they're aware of it, and they were working on, they sent me some stuff back that talked about what we're planning on
That's
doing.
sufficient. Thank you, Cody. I appreciate that. Any other questions for Cody? Thank you, Cody. Chair to address a motion. No, excuse me. Anybody from the audience would like to speak on this? Chair would address a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd move approval of this aggregate mining proposal.
Second. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve per staff's recommendation MP 23-01 with 11 conditions. Discussion. Discussion from the audience. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to item number 18.
Morning, Commissioners. Jason Tennyson, Assistant Planning Director. Agenda number 18 is lot line adjustment plat 23-02 to reconfigure lot lines to create Lot AR and Lot 5R2 of Block E of Edelweiss Mountain Development. The applicant is Maurice and Connie Reiner. The other affected landowner is Greg Hubner. Their agent and surveyor is DC Scott. Location of the properties is 155 and 153 Falcon Lane. Proposed lot sizes, proposed lot AR will be 2.08 acres. Proposed lot 5R2 will be 2.02 acres. They're both zone suburban residential district. Access is off Falcon Lane, and there's no special flood hazard area on the property. So up on the screen, I do have the existing lots on the left-hand side and the proposed lots on the right. You can see basically Mr. Hubner is going to sell this portion of property to Mr. Reiner, and you can see the former lot line here, and that's being added in. So as the properties sit today, Lot A, which will become Lot AR furthest to the north, it does have a single-family residence. It is 1.89 acres. It is on a community lagoon system. The other Lot 5R to the south is 2.23 acres. It does have a single-family residence and a community system. Proposed Lot AR will become 2.08 acres, and Lot 5R2 will be 2.02 acres. The request was sent out for interdepartmental review. Register of Deeds did have a comment stating that the subdivision name needs to be either subdivision or addition. I think as it sits now, it does read Edelweiss Mountain Development. Per South Dakota codified law, they need to have subdivision or addition at the end of that. So that is included as a condition of approval. No other concerns or objections were received. Staff's analysis of the request is that in review of the proposed plat, the certificates do not match requirements of the subdivision regulations. So a condition of approval is moving forward, they do. The private access and utility easements do not meet the minimum 66-foot required by the subdivision regulations or ordinance 14. That's also included as a condition of approval. And lastly, the applicant does not have a valid on-site wastewater treatment system operating permit, so he'll need to square that away before he moves forward with the final plat. All that to say, staff recommends approval of lot line adjustment 23-02 with conditions.
Questions for Jason? Anyone from the audience? I don't have a speaker request for him here to address this matter. Item number 18. Okay, Chair to address a motion.
So move.
Second. Moved and seconded to approve per staff's recommendation. LAPL 23-02 with 6 conditions. Discussion. Jason, and I had a tough time figuring it out, but basically we're just making a small amount of land adjustment between A and the old lot.
Yeah, that's correct. So you can see up on the right-hand side of the screen.
Yeah, we're just adjusting the acreage more than anything.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Jason? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to item number 19.
Agenda item number 19 is conditional use permit amendment 15-09 to amend an existing conditional use permit to add 2 additional storage units on the subject property. The applicant and owner is Reno Gulf Storage, Darren Rains. The agent is Zeb Rains. Location of the property is 24106 Highway 385. It is 7.92 acres, currently zoned Highway Service District. Existing land use is commercial storage units. Access is off Highway 385, and there is no special flood hazard area on the property. Zoning ordinance does list 7 criteria the Planning Commission may consider in their review of conditional use permit applications. They're on the screen. I'll read staff's responses starting with number 1. No, the requested use should not be detrimental or endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare. Number 2, no, the requested use should not substantially impair or diminish the use's values or enjoyment of other property in the neighborhood for purposes already permitted. Number 3, no, the requested use should not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding properties for uses permitted in the district. Number 4, yes, adequate utilities and access roads already exist on the subject property. Number 5, yes, the existing approach will provide ingress and egress to minimize traffic congestion on Highway 385. Number 6, yes, the current zoning district is Highway Service District. The requested use will conform to all applicable regulations of the district if this conditional use permit is approved. And lastly, number 7, yes, future land uses identified as Highway Service District storage units are an approved use with an approved conditional use permit. As the property sits today, there is a mobile home / caretaker residence on the property and 10 permitted storage buildings. There's an on-site wastewater treatment system with a current operating permit. There is 1 on-premise sign as well as 3 billboards. The request was sent out for interdepartmental review, and there were no objections or concerns received at that time. However, staff has received letters of opposition from adjacent landowners. Staff's analysis of the request is that this conditional use permit was last amended on June 27th last year to allow 2 additional storage units. And those are buildings 9 and 10 I have on the screen, these 2 here. What the applicant is proposing now is to build these 2 additional storage units. The applicant has also indicated that the caretaker residence, not sure if I have a picture, but I don't think I have one. There is currently a caretaker residence right here on this portion of property, and he does plan to have that out of there by April of this year. So that will allow construction of these 2 proposed buildings. Staff has added multiple conditions of approval regarding stormwater management on the property. They were lacking in the original approvals since this came about in 2015. So staff felt it appropriate to add those. And there is a pending hearing for this vacated section line in front of the Board of Commissioners. As you can see, this is where on the screen, this is where that vacated section line is. The applicant is not proposing to place these structures within that vacated section line at this time. If something happens and the board does make a decision one way or the other on that isolated tract issue, it may open that up so the applicant could change plans, but that would take an approved building permit. So at this time, he is proposing to place those structures here. With that, staff recommends approval of conditional use permit 15-09 with conditions.
Thank you, Jason. Questions for
Chair,
Jason?
This past weekend, we commissioners have received emails objecting to this agenda item. Let me read it. It's from Cross Sabers LLC. It says, "We object to passing this CUP. Ongoing legal review has not been completed through the Board of Commissioners. Review of the request should be postponed until this item is resolved through the Board of Commissioners." And it's signed John Henderson, who is here now. I've known John for years. I called him last night, try to figure out what's going on. Basically, what he would like to do is back off us doing anything on this until the commissioners meet. In talking with the commissioners this morning, March 7th will be that meeting. Our first meeting after that would be March 27th. Therefore, I make a motion that item number 19, which would be CU 1509, be postponed, continued until the meeting of March 27th.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded to continue this matter would be, let me get to the right item so we word it right for the record. CU 15-09. We would be continuing that to the March 27th did you say?
Right.
Your
Yes.
motion? All right, discussion from the commission, from the audience.
I'm up on your list.
Yep, we're gonna get to those,
Okay,
yeah.
I sit back. Thank you.
I do have two speaker request forms. All right, first one's John Henderson. Thank you, Jason.
You bet.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is John Henderson. I live at 24048 South Highway 16385. Our only position here is to ask, at least I'm sure Commissioner Drews is tired of this topic too, as are we. We've been in this feud for, not, I couldn't call it a feud, this dispute since 2019. We have poured money and money and money into it. And so and hopefully within this next month, because we pretty much got a commission, to word it in my kind of words, the commissioner's just like, okay, get this done, we're tired of it. So are we. So when I got the certified letter, I didn't get it till Friday. I didn't get into the post office to get it on time. Then Monday was a holiday, so it was I have very short notice on this. All that we are asking is that until we resolve these other issues, that you not proceed and grant this conditional use permit. But when the last two buildings were installed, we didn't object to it. We didn't object to it at all. It's their land. I'm a libertarian. It's their land. They should do with it what they want. However, we have an infringement because we cannot access our property on the east side of the Mickelson Trail, east of their storage unit properties. So all we're asking is that you not grant this conditional use permit until we can possibly resolve this other issue, which we are still in between, sadly, with lawyers, between their lawyers and our lawyers, to try to resolve it. So I think all I'm asking as a representative of Cross Savers and a partner is that you at least stall this until we resolve this other issue or it just becomes a bigger mess. That's all I have, except thank you for your service on the commission.
Thanks, John. Just hold up. Any questions for John? I only have one.
Yes.
And it's kind of in what you said. So you have actively involved yourself or your representatives in discussions on how to resolve this matter? You've
Not the
actively.
conditional use permit, but the
No,
section.
no.
The vacated section line.
The vacated
Oh,
section
yeah,
line.
we're loaded, yeah, we're.
That the
engineered up.
commissioners are going to meet
We're
on.
lawyered up and engineered up and the whole 9
Okay.
units, yes.
All right. That's the only question I had. Whether some people just don't get actively involved when they kind of stay home, so to speak, for lack of a better term. And then they wonder what's going on. So, but I just wanted to make sure that you've been, or your representatives have been actively involved in what the commissioners are bringing up at their review.
Commissioner Drews? Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, how do you access your property currently?
Where are you at? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
We have, I don't know what is conditional use, what. We have, as the agreement went between my parents who are now deceased, they came to an agreement with the South Dakota Game Fish and Parks that we were allowed to use the Mickelson Trail for agricultural purposes only. That's the only access we have to that. But we could not utilize now we're getting into where the commission's at. We cannot utilize the Mickelson Trail to access this property. The one legal access that we had was the section line. It was vacated by the county commission. We have since been in negotiations with the Reno Gulch Storage to move it, reopen it, give us a private easement, some kind of physical access to that property. But there is no physical access to it.
Okay. Thank you.
Additional questions? Thank you, John.
Thank you. Thank all of you.
I have a second request from Frank Henderson.
Good morning. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is, I'll say it, Frank Ellis Henderson III. I'm actually named after my father. I'm the oldest of the Henderson siblings. I'm actually impressed by my brother. He's our general manager and kind of been leading this discussion. I'll leave it at that in his presentation here today. myself personally, I've been on this side of this presentation a lot. I'm a registered professional engineer in several states throughout the country and currently in process of becoming registered here in the state of South Dakota. I'm actually in process of moving. I heard somebody else is moving from Arizona. I'm doing the same thing. I'm moving up here as well. Last week kind of put a little dent in that plan. But what I want to relay here is, and I'm gonna follow him and say, we want this thing delayed. This entire issue, it all has to do with access to our property. Now, one thing I can remember as a young person, as the oldest of the children, when we first moved onto this property, we drove across that section line all the time to get back to that property on the east side of the Mickelson Trail. I can tell you and I know the engineer is a local engineer who's come in and presented about the viability of us being able to build a road to get into that property. That property is really valuable. It's an island sitting back there that has an incredible view. You talk about development purposes. It's a $2 million view sitting back in there that is only accessible across that section line that's been vacated. I've done my own engineering on it, and we can build a road in there. We can do that. We need to resolve this issue with the county to come up with something that works for our family so that we can utilize the property that we've been on for all of these years. Until we get that done, until we have something that's fair to us, we're being treated unfairly. And I'm going to throw this out there. One of the things I do as a professional engineer is I'm a guy that goes out and builds highways and roads and takes real estates and acquire property. And sometimes we've done it by eminent domain, and sometimes we've done it by negotiation. But you also always have to guarantee that property has access. You cannot sever access to property. This is doing that. To do anything, this is severing our only viable access to that property. Going down Mickelson Trail, unless you guys want to start approving having buses going down the road or trucks going down that Mickelson Trail in the middle of bicycle traffic, there's no other way to drive to that property. So our point is that to continue to approve development of this land until we resolve an issue that's an ongoing issue between adjoining property owners, that we need to have this thing postponed. I'm very nervous. That's why I'm pressed by my brother, okay? Because I'm used to being up here and having conversations with city councils and commissions, and I'm actually pretty nervous. I found out about a little while ago from him, and I drove here. I'm catching an airplane out of here to Phoenix, and I will be back for on the March 7th. Was that when the date of the hearing was? Was it March 7th that I heard?
Yeah, I believe that's
The
correct.
7th is for the commission.
For the Board of
27th is
Commissioners.
for us.
Yes,
Okay.
27th is Planning Commission.
Okay, so I will be back on the 7th. And again, I also want to say I appreciate your time and thank you for your time here. I already heard your finding that you motioned in second to delay this. I appreciate that very much from you. I appreciate the time to talk. But I just want to express, John has been carrying this. I'm moving here. I'm here to help support him and support our family and our best interests. And that's all I really had to say.
Okay, questions for Frank?
When you use that section line before, is there an approach that goes over the Mickelson Trail?
Yes.
There must be something if you were taking tractors.
There is.
and whatever.
We actually, the approach was along the section line, and when you got back in back along the Mickelson Trail, and I wish I had a pointer, but I don't. When you got back to the Mickelson Trail, we actually cut across what was originally the old Hill City Zoo property. There's a little piece of property that kind of cuts right there, and we just drove right through there and across the top across the railroad tracks onto our property.
Megan Kruger with the State's Attorney's Office. So this issue is extremely complicated, as I'm sure Mr. Drews can attest to. That issue isn't really for this commission to make a decision on, and all of the facts surrounding access and whether there is or isn't access, that's a decision for the board to make. Your guys' decision today is simply whether you're going to grant the CUP or not. The reason why legally this was allowed to come before you is because it does not include any disputed area that has ever been disputed by any of the parties in any of the conversations that I've ever been privy to, and I've been dealing with this for 2 years now.
Thank you, Meg.
With all respect to the State's Attorney's Office, with all the respect in the world, okay? Loss by inches is lost by miles. And if we continue to agree to have this ongoing development on this property, it's slowly but surely eroding, it's slowly and surely becoming more and more accepted for something that we're in great dispute over. I agree with her. We are in dispute over it. It could be considered a separate issue. I guess that's conversations for other people to decide on. But with all respect, we're trying to get along. John's been in conversations. We're trying to get along. We agreed to the previous two buildings without saying anything about it. We're objecting to these two buildings because it's continuing to be a development on a property that we have a dispute over.
Thank you, Frank. Any other questions for Frank? Thank you.
Thank you all.
Anyone else from the audience would like to speak on this matter? Commission, you're open for discussion.
Charlie, I would support continuing one time, but I wouldn't support continuing it over and over again until the other issue is done. I agree, we shouldn't hold the new CUP request hostage based on a legal matter that's out of our purview.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
It seems to me that if we approve this, it will be up to the county board to either confirm our recommendation or reject it. And it seems to me that this issue is an extraneous one, although an important one, I'm sure, to the parties involved. But I don't see how we can responsibly simply defer this for the convenience of a legal case that we are not obligated to resolve. Now, the county board has the final word on this, and it might be up to them then to say, no, we're going to defer action on this accordingly. But I would be uncomfortable, I think, at least with my current understanding of the issue, in rejecting what seems to me to be a CUP application that ought to be approved. So
Megan Krieger.
Megan wants to reply to your first question.
Could I just clarify just a little bit? So this commission would still have the decision-making authority on the conditional use permit. What is currently in front of the board is a petition for an isolated tract. And then there was, at one point, there was a petition for relocation and bringing back a previously vacated section line. It's, as I said, extremely complicated. My understanding from pretty much my involvement with this issue from the very beginning is that it's that northern part of the property, basically where you see those dotted lines up, that is in dispute. We have received previously requests for buildings to be built within that kind of delineated area that I pointed out to everyone. The previous owner of this property had changed his application and I believe built buildings 9 and 10. Am I correct, Jason?
Right.
So the last request was for buildings 9 and 10. You see those two longer pieces right there. And so because it's not being requested within that area that's ever been disputed or where anybody ever wants to build a road, it was kind of a balance for the county in allowing the CUP to go forward, because the last one, we told the applicant, who was the previous owner of the property, that they couldn't even bring their application forward because they were trying to place structures within the disputed area. For a little bit of background. Make sense?
Thank you, Megan.
So it'll still be in front of the Board of Commissioners, that they will still have to decide if the parties can't come to a private agreement, because there was about 4 or 5 months where really nothing happened on this, and it had been continued. The matter in front of the board had been continued for an indefinite period of time. Nothing was happening with it, and so I, on behalf of the Board of Commissioners, actually sent a letter out to the parties' attorneys, basically saying that a decision needs to be made on this issue because we were receiving new applications for building on this property. So it's one of those situations where the road and whether there's access to the backside of the property isn't within your guys' purview. But my guess is that you're probably going to continue getting requests for developing this property because there's really, aside from that pending request for that northern part of the property, there's really nothing aside from our zoning ordinances that stops them from developing that property.
Thank you. Jim, you still have the floor.
Yeah, I guess I would be comfortable in opposing it then, or I mean, in supporting the recommendation of staff. That's my feeling.
Anyone else like to weigh in?
Council? Making,
Sorry.
is there any precedent or history on disputed issues that, that one party can say, I'm going to continue on, and the other party just has to sit there and wait? Or is there any precedent on that?
Well, so our ordinance doesn't necessarily disallow that. It's more of, I don't know, I guess it's more of a legal fiction. If you allow somebody to build in that northern portion, you've essentially decided the issue before the board gets the opportunity to make that decision. If it's not in an area that's disputed, well, there really isn't anything that would stop them from developing that property if it was a use by right. So I don't know, is that highway service? If they wanted to put a use by right for highway service out there, all they would have to do is come in and get their building permit, and we wouldn't even be here. And there wouldn't really be any reason for the planning commission to deny that request. What complicates the issue is that that northern part of the property is disputed among some other parts of the properties that are surrounding this area to get access to this property here to the right side, the east. And whether there is or isn't access, that is a hotly disputed topic, and one that is for the board to decide if the parties can't come to a private agreement.
That's right, okay. Good.
Thank you. Additional, Kevin?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think in simplicity, before the board was the legal representatives of both parties at our last meeting. They asked for a continuance until March 7th to try to resolve the issue. I think what Michael is asking today is that we don't know what all the parameters are on those discussions, those legal discussions. And so instead of changing the property as it currently is established right now, to continue this until those negotiations have been completed or March 7th comes up, at which time their schedule will be back before our board. And we're hopeful that something will be agreed upon between the two parties and that the commission really doesn't have to take any action. Don't know that's going to happen, but that's what we're hoping.
Thank you, Gary. Any other comments? Anyone else from the audience want to speak? Any more discussion from the commission?
I'll make one comment.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I don't see where their current plan is interfering with any kind of road access to that other property. I'm kind of along the same line as Commissioner Coleman, that I don't see anything stopping us from making a decision today because it's not really affecting the legal means of the other dispute. You've got other buildings in front of the two that are proposed, so you're never going to get a road through there anyway. I'm at March 7th meeting, I could agree to postponing to the 13th Planning Commission meeting versus the 27th. They're making plans to demo a property in April. I think we need to give them the ability to move forward with their plans and give them enough time to be able to coordinate those efforts. So it's kind of my comment.
Thank you,
I could be in favor of approving it today, but I'm not opposed to waiting to the 13th. I think waiting till the 27th is a stretch.
Yeah, I would agree.
Jim?
Yeah, I would agree with Kevin that there ought to be a little push here to get this resolved, and maybe limiting the extension of this issue time-wise would help. I don't know, but I really don't see this shouldn't be an impediment to what the applicant is trying to do, I don't think. So I would be in favor of a proposal along those lines that Kevin suggested.
I would offer a substitute motion to continue till March 13th, Planning
Second.
Commission meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded as a substitute motion to continue to March 13th meeting, not the 27th. You got that, Jim?
Yes.
Okay. Discussion. Go ahead, Mike.
Can I ask one of the Hendersons to come up a second? I'd like to know if this would fit with what they're trying to do. John, does that give you enough time?
Attorneys.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
Once again, John Henderson. I don't know, to be honest with you. And the long gap that we had where nothing happened, it's because the attorneys were back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. We have several new proposals that we've proposed to them, and we have not gotten feedback and answer from them, from the Reno Gulch, from their attorney representing them. So we're back to waiting for them to come back with an answer, whether they would accept that or not. And then if the answer is no, then the fight goes on. It'll probably end up in court. I hope it doesn't. Our position on this thing is, if this is still, and I can't spill all the beans here, but there's still a potential of an access point from their existing approach on 16-385, across through their property to possibly access our property, and then we would throw in the towel on the northernmost part of the property. Everybody gets what they want. All we want is access. If they continue to build buildings coming south, like these two new ones, then that cuts out that opportunity by a lot.
Understand, but my question at this point, the reason I did the 27th, because I figured you'd need some time after the determination, whatever it is. If the 13th is okay, then I have no problem with that.
That's not very long in attorney time.
That was my thinking.
I would prefer, obviously, if this is what this commission decides, I accept that. But it would actually be much more beneficial to stretch that out, that additional, whatever it is, 2 weeks. Yes, I would prefer that, but whatever this commission decides, I respect.
Good. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other discussion?
Read this.
I guess I'm going to wade in. When you're dealing with attorneys and you're dealing with government entities, it would appear to me you start shortening up that time span. Closes a lot of doors to discussion, to thought. And one of the things that I do note is that to get these two buildings, there's a maximum of 12 as it currently sits as a development. You've got to remove one building to get the two. Otherwise, you're only going to get one. And they are requesting the two. It doesn't appear to me that we're holding up the project by waiting till the other buildings removed. Plus, you've still got March and April weather in the Black Hills of South Dakota in regards to construction. Looks to me like they can find their contractors, and they don't show up any faster this year than they did other years. We're dealing with some time. I have a tendency to think that the substituted motion is just too short. But that's my own. Any other discussion? Anyone from the audience? All right, we're voting on the substitute motion first. Everyone understand that? Okay. And that's for the 13th, Kevin?
Correct.
And the second is in agreement with the 13th.
Yes.
All right. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. Aye. Why don't you go ahead and just start down the. Thank you, Jerry.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'm voting no.
For the 13th?
Yes. for this motion.
I voted yes for it.
Mike,
No.
Kevin Burton,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Charlie,
No.
and Jim.
Jim?
Yes.
4-3.
4 to 3.
Good.
The 13th.
All right,
Actually, I think that works.
that is sufficient to pass the motion.
They'll make it.
On to item, I think it's 20 is the next one, isn't it, Jason?
Yes, sir.
20. And
Agenda item number
you're in
20.
charge. Go ahead. You got the
Item
floor.
number 20 is conditional use permit 23-01 to allow multiple family dwelling on the subject property, and the planning commission did see this at the last meeting. So staff is recommending to continue this request until the March 13th, 2023 planning commission meeting. During the February 13th meeting, the planning commission, it was discovered that this request was inaccurately noticed. If you remember, the last speaker that got up said he received the wrong information on the notification. Continuing the hearing of this item to March 13th, planning commission meeting will allow staff time to mail corrected notifications and re-advertise the request.
And I see your applicant's in the audience, so I'm sure she's aware of that.
Yep. I made her.
You have anything you want to add to that? Or, okay. Chair would take a motion if you're going to continue it.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to continue per staff's recommendation, conditional use permit CU 23-01 to the March 13th meeting of the Planning Commission. Discussion. I only have one. There isn't anything legally we've got to do versus our other continuation motion, is there, Megan? You know, we continue this to this one. The fact that it wasn't advertised, that there isn't anything we've got to clean up, just for the record.
They just need to re-advertise it correctly.
Thank you. Very good. Any other discussion? Yes, Christine. Certainly. Just introduce yourself just for the record.
Tina Roberts, applicant. Can you remind me what the incorrect notice was, just for the top of mind for the record? Please.
Sure. Yep, the notices that went out had referenced section 319, which was for vacation home rentals. It should have referenced the correct multiple family dwelling. I believe it's 303.
But it was incorrectly published.
The
Or sent
notifications that
out,
were mailed
yes.
out, yes. Yep.
Okay, thank you. That clears that up. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to item number 21. Does anybody want to take a break, or you want to get through and get out of here?
Can we take a break?
No? Jim's really tough. His dog hasn't barked yet at him, so we're going to let him hang in there. Go ahead. Thank you,
All right.
Brittany.
Brittany Mahler, Planning Director. This is item 21. It's ordinance amendment OA 23-02 to add section 331 on-site wastewater treatment system, septic systems to the Pennington County zoning ordinance. Currently, this is in section 204J, so that's under a general district provision, so we're actually going to make it its own section. So it's easier to find. Right now, it's pretty difficult for people to find it in our ordinance, so that's one reason. It's all reformatted. Most of the information in it's the same. I'll go over some highlighted points. I did highlight some of the major changes in yellow. So currently in our ordinance, the on-site wastewater operating, it's called a permit. We're calling it a license now because it's something that's renewed on a regular basis. So it's just a terminology change for our office and the way that we do business in our office more so than it is anything. One of the biggest changes is currently right now we require, no matter what, pumping and inspection every 6 years. So it's just on a 6-year cycle. And there is a exemption for properties that are unplatted and 40 acres or more in ag. So we're proposing changing that frequency to just on any sale or transfer of property, which is currently now, but it would just be on the sale or transfer of property at the time of a building permit application submittal for a structure, and the alteration would have to include finished space, so not like adding a garage or a porch or a deck, it would just be finished space. There would be an exemption, so if an operating license is current, meaning that they've had one within 6 years, they wouldn't have to do it again. At the change in designation request, so that is if they plat, get a conditional use permit, rezone their property, they would have to have a current operating license in place. Any commercial or industrial system, though, would still have to be pumped every 3 years. And then we do have some, this one is already currently in our ordinance, that a different frequency. Some of these have been maybe for vacation home rentals. There are some PUDs that require a different frequency of pumping. There could be one that may be undersized, but it's still in compliance with our ordinance, so we do have them pump them more often just to stay as more of a maintenance type issue. So under the frequency, I know that's a big change, so I would entertain any questions or comments on that before moving forward to some of the other changes. We just feel like in the beginning, when we started doing this every 6 years, we were at a 25 to 30% repair rate. I mean, there was about 25 or 30% of them that needed repairs, and that's gone down significantly. So I feel like our staff has discussed this, and we feel like the ordinance, it's been 13 years now that we've been doing this, is kind of vetted out some of those areas that had those older systems, the education is out there. And we feel like, when people are doing their building permits, when they're doing their rezones, their conditional uses, or on sale or transfer, that's adequate, I think, to still meet the general intent of the ordinance.
Brittany, remind us what the yellow highlighted indicates.
Those are the major changes, because this was reformatted completely into kind of how we're reformatting, and I just wanted the yellow highlights are the major changes, those the ones that are significant.
Mr. Chair, I follow up on that. So when I look at under the on-site wastewater operating license, under 1A, where it says this can include verbal or written, includes email notice. Is verbal done in other areas through planning? I mean,
What we mean by verbal typically is if they come to the counter to get a building permit and they don't have a current license, letting them know that they need to get it to submit their building permit. That would be a verbal requirement.
okay. So when you do that, you don't do a follow-up of saying, essentially, here's what we agreed to today through your requests, or something to indicate that in writing that they were told that?
We have been doing that lately when we meet with, so I'm just going back, this is kind of a separate discussion, but when we meet with applicants now over, CUPs or anything like that, we do a follow-up email with them saying, these are the things that we discussed, these are the next step type processes. And we do that also with the building permits if they're significant items that they need, so.
Any other questions for Brittany on that one? I do.
I know you worked on this really hard back in 2008 to 2010.
No, actually, I got an easy one. Do you have some type, it's similar to what Gary's alluding to. Do you have some type of tickler system that calls these up? And the reason I ask is because as I know, there are a number of certified contractors that advise their people to have them pumped every 3 years, at which time it would be better if those automatically went in support of the person that has that operating permit or license.
Right, so we have in our system, we have a license, we converted them over to a license because the way that our database works, when it's put in as a license, we can actually do a query, type it in for dates and it'll tell you which ones are coming up to be expired. We did that before, but it was way more onerous in the system, so that's why we converted it to a license. The other thing is if they do pump it more often than they're supposed to, what we do is it's called a pump record. So we actually put it in the system, it's still attached to the parcel, so it still shows, so they're still getting credit for it. even though they're not required to actually get the license and pay the $20, they're getting credit for actually having it pumped. So we do upload it to the parcel. So
That's
the
good,
information
because
is
I've had
there.
a number of people ask me, knowing that I served in this a long time ago, about the shorter pumping cycle. Do we have, and the latest one brought up that his pumper doesn't automatically submit the mid ones. Do we have a way of letting our certified pumpers that are on our list know that if they do have ones that are pumped on a shorter cycle, they should submit those reports as well?
If this gets approved, we probably will send something out to the pumpers letting know, hey, these are the changes in our ordinance. Maybe some recommendations, because it does become somewhat onerous on the owners, because then they have to go back, they have to call the pumping companies, they have to email them or send them in. We do accept them. And like I said, we scan them in and attach them to the parcel, so they're getting credit for doing it if we receive it. We're
Yeah,
just not charging them the $20 to, if their pumpers are doing it every 2
Right.
years, we don't charge them $20 every 2 years because they have a valid license.
The one that brought it up had put their place up for sale, and the particular pumper, and a lot of them do go on the market, throws it knew it wasn't up, had checked with the officer, knew it wasn't up, and just tossed it away. So when they have a sale for the realtors, they had no document. They could have saved a $300 pumping was what the matter was. So it'd be nice if we would alert them that go ahead and send those in between reports. That's the first time I'd ever heard of that happening, but
Yeah, most of the pumpers do, but not all of
some
them.
don't, right?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions for
Yeah,
Brittany?
just a quickie, going along with this, the in-between pumping, does the average pumper look at the baffles like he would on a 6-year one, or is they just pump it and that's it?
It depends, I think. Some of them will just pump it, some of them will actually fill out the form and send it in, so it
See,
just
Charlie, if
depends.
they did that, if they inspected the thing on 3 years, say, for example, then they sold the property, I don't know if you'd go out 6 years then to the next time, or you'd still work with, see, that would be the question.
Well, on the sale or transfer, it doesn't matter. They would have to do it every time.
Right.
Most of and I'm not going to speak for Kevin, but most of the realtors, either the buyer or the seller's agent, require it no matter
First
what.
place, okay.
So it's getting done for those anyway, because I think it's just it gives it a clean bill moving forward, so to
Exactly.
speak.
It covers that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yes.
Brittany, do we know how many, I'm sure you do, gray water and black water holding tanks we actually have?
We used to not have very many, and we're getting more and more of them. When you go gray and black water, especially in new construction, it's easier when they do them in new construction, and in more remote areas, they do those, because they're a little more cost effective. The drain field only has to be 40% of the size. So a lot of times they'll split those up, especially if they have limited area for their drain field. They do that. It's becoming more and more common.
So where we say here that they're only permitted once all other options are exhausted,
Mm-hmm.
that's new? I mean,
No.
that's not, okay.
No, that was actually in a different section of our ordinance, and it was really hard to find. So when people would come up to look for it, it was under like a general random section that you wouldn't normally look at it.
Okay.
So we actually just took it from there and put it in here. So most of the time, those are in floodplains, areas where they have, Silver City is a very good example, just because the distances to wells and other systems is just, the lots are so small.
Sure.
So.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And I did see you clean that up about the 1,500 gallons and the black water only in it anyway. That's probably the biggest change that I noted, were the 1,500 gallons being more in most people's minds. It used to be the 1,000 everybody had on their mind, so.
And another big change, this is going in with what the city of Rapid City does. They do require 2 compartment septic tanks for garbage disposals. And this would be just moving forward, so any new systems. So any ones that are existing wouldn't have to take out their tank to do this. But it does really help with the solids, because it catches them in that first tank. It protects the drain field. Garbage disposals can be, they're not drain fields get clogged pretty easily when there's too much stuff, because it seems everyone puts everything down their garbage disposals. So that is a new requirement moving forward. So that would just be new construction or any replacement. Let's
Are we
see.
allowed to move ahead of you?
Mm-hmm. I'm just
Okay.
kind of going
The
through.
75%, I'm on page 17.
Okay. Oh, can I do
That's
one?
something's new, isn't it?
No, can I do one really quick on number 11?
Oh,
Because
go
this had
ahead.
come up on page 11 with the baffles. This had come up at a Board of Commissioners
yeah.
meeting, so we did fix that language on the baffles with the PVC.
No more concrete baffles?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
If they're existing and in good repair, but most of them aren't. They don't last very long.
Okay.
So, okay, so you're on 17?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we, you just, I thought you just brought that up about the baffles. Do we require all the inlets now be PVC, not cast iron? Okay,
Every in the end outlet.
okay, because
Mhm.
that's the most common failure period of all septic.
Baffles.
Yeah,
Mhm.
is the
And it's
baffles,
the
and then the
most-
next is the inlet because of our soils.
Yeah, and it's probably one of the most detrimental things that can affect your drain field by not having a $7 PVC baffle.
Right.
It's a pretty important piece, so.
Well, and I, for one, can tell you that the county works with you when you have one of those happen out of the blue, as long as you'll pump your tank and let them know, so they give you time to get a contractor there. It's difficult. I don't know whether any of you are aware of this, but it's difficult to get them there right now on a timely basis. These guys are busy. And the county does have a situation. If you'll go ahead, call them up, and you've got your license or your permit, operating permit, and tell them, hey, my main line just disconnected because it's cast iron, and my contractor even told me without digging a hole. And they'll work with you until you get it repaired, so that this doesn't end up a life-changing experience, so to speak. Now, 17, I had the 75%. Is that new?
Actually, it is. So prior to this ordinance change, we actually required the installers to go to like a training, like a day-long training. And, we'd bring in experts from other areas and things. And we did that for 3 or 4 times, I believe. And it was okay, I think, for most of the installers. We did get some complaints because when they have to go to a day of training, it takes a day away from them working. So that was one of the complaints. One of the other concerns that we had is that our ordinance is a little different than the state's requirements, the administrative rules. And there was some confusion in them understanding the differences between. One difference is the state allows 48 inch depth drain fields. We only allow 36. You have to understand, like throughout the state, they're, in other parts of the state, they have more sand, so 48 inches isn't bad. You put something at 48 inches in clay, you're going to have problems. So what was kind of the impetus of that change, and that went way back to 2010 changes. So with that, and then how to do percolation tests, there was just some other things. So staff, we talked about this quite a bit, and TJ, he's our environmental planner that focuses mainly on these works with the installers and does all the inspections. He has been kind of out there every time he goes on an inspection, talking to the installers. Hey, would you rather do the training or would you rather take a test that's more pertinent to our ordinance so you have a better understanding of our ordinance? And overwhelmingly, they said, we'd all like to just take a test. So they can come in, they can get their test, they can take it. They don't have to wait for this one-day training that only happens once every 2 years. And if you don't make it, then you're trying to scramble and find other things. They can come in, they can get a copy of the test, they can take the test, and it will be based mostly on our ordinance, like our specific requirements of our ordinance. So that is a big change, yes. And it will be valid for 5 years instead of doing the training every 3. So it'll match up with what the state does. So the state requires every 5 years, so we'll do the same. So.
Does just one person within the particular company have to hold the certificate, or And as I understood, you have had other people come in with their staff or have other people go through the,
So a lot of times contractors will have their main person that oversees the project, and then they'll have their laborers, and their laborers might not necessarily have the certification, but the contractor does, and he's the one that signs off on the work.
thank you.
So is there any other questions? I don't think I missed any other major changes. I think we discussed almost all of them. This was just reformatted, so it's a little easier to find things and read. But most of the main requirements are still the same as they've been since 2010, with the biggest change is the frequency of the operating license. Just that it isn't going to be a standard every 6 years, no matter what. So, for example, if you live on your property and you never get a building permit and you never ask for a CUP, and you don't sell your property, you don't need one. That's basically the shortest answer. So,
Any other questions for Brittany on the changes? When you say reformatting, you know how I just look under rocks? What does that really mean, Brittany?
well, we've been changing our ordinances, like each of our sections, to kind of update them, so it's in the same format.
Like
And then
a
this one
program
reads a little
format
easier.
that you have, or it's a format you guys have put together that you want to draft your book to, so it's easy, user-friendly?
Right, and then we know which ones have been updated most recently, because we can tell by the format.
Oh, back to the tickler file. You see older ones. Got to like sign ordinances.
Yeah, that'll be next,
All right,
yes.
thank you. That's sufficient. I understand. Anything else? Anyone from the audience want to speak on this or discuss or ask a question? Okay. Chair to address a motion for this particular one.
I move we approve OA 23-02.
All right, I'm going to get back to my page. It's easier to call them up. Correct. All right, 2302. Thank you. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve per staff's recommendation, OA 23-02, which is to add section 331 on wastewater treatment septic systems to the Pennington County zoning ordinance. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. On to item, I had the right page there.
22.
Your pages are hard to find on this. Just a second, I put my pen. There we go, 2303.
So item 22 is ordinance amendment OA 23-23 to amend section 204J on-site wastewater treatment systems of the Pennington County zoning ordinance. This is just where the current section was, so now it's just going to reference the new 331.
Not very complicated. Is there any questions for Brittany on it?
Move to approve.
Second.
A 23-03.
Moved and seconded to approve per staff's recommendation, ordinance amendment OA 23-03 to amend section 20J on-site wastewater treatment systems to the Pennington County zoning ordinance. Discussion from the audience, from the commission. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to item number 23, which is OA 23-04.
Item 23 is ordinance amendment OA 23-04 to amend section 511 fees of the Pennington County zoning ordinance. It's just to add the installer certification fee of $50. That would be when they apply for the test, they take the test. That will be just administrative time to enter in them into the system, grade the test, and mail out the information. It's pretty standard.
When's the last time that, at $20, when was it put into place, Brittany?
We're not changing that one, but that one's from 2010.
Okay, and then we're going with a new one for $50.
That's just the installer certification fee, so it's $50, it's for 5 years. Again, TJ has spoken with several of the installers. They felt that that was fair. The actual training was every 3 years, and you ended up costing anywhere from $75 to $100. It did include breakfast and lunch, though. And then, and then they had to miss, a day of work. Yeah, we'll have to change that. Yeah, so.
Questions on the new $50 side? I wanted you to hear how long, that $20 been sitting there a long time. And if you remember right, the city, at the same time we installed $20 was at 125, and they were moving in the directions of 300.
Now they're at 20.
Yeah, they're at 20. So we did our work as a
The
county.
installer certification is every 5 years too?
Yes, it's every 5 years. It's just the one-time application test fee. So it's just like what the state does. When they apply to take their test and get the application packet,
Okay.
they pay the $50. It's like, almost like a contractor's license fee.
So when they renew in 5 years,
Mhm.
do they still take training at that point in time, or do they just pay the fee?
They'll still have to retake the test because the test will be pertinent. We might have to
Okay,
change it from time to
okay.
time if our ordinance changes.
By the way, stick up for the city. They did vote then and held up. They didn't change their fee and waited for us because it took us 2.5 years, and then went with our fee. I got to stick up for the city. They did it voluntarily. We didn't ask them. Any other questions from the audience? Chair to address the motion.
Move to approve OA 23-04.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve ordinance amendment OA 23-04 to amend section 511 fees of Pennington County zoning ordinance. Discussion from the audience, from the commission. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to item number 24.
All right, item number 24. So all of these are somewhat concurrent together because they all have to do with the dead-end road system. And the dead-end road system is discussed in two sections, or in two separate sections. It's in our zoning ordinance and it's in the subdivision regulations. And currently, right now, they conflict with one another a little bit, so it gets
Brittany,
confusing.
can I stop you? Would somebody like to make a motion so we can discuss them together? We still have to vote individually on them, but if you should desire to do that, it takes a 2/3 vote.
Well, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
And I think Brittany's aware of this, that there's some of the Board of Commissioners that have questioned some of the limitations on 40 units in some particular areas. So I do think that this will be up for further discussion at the board level, at the Board of Commissioners level, at some point in time in the future here.
Okay, we're going to do them one by one. Nobody step forward.
Okay, no, that's all right. So item 24 is ordinance amendment OA 23-05 to amend section 204F of the general district provisions. It's to update this section to provide consistency between the zoning ordinance and the subdivision regulations. How it reads currently is up here. And then we just added dwelling units because it wasn't clear, because it has gone back forth as far as what that means. And then this also was removed because there was a dead-end road system. They could have a dead-end road system and not have a single point that connects to an arterial. And that's the majority of ours in the county, the way that that's worded. So that was removed, and this was the intent, is in all zoning districts, a dead-end road system must not exceed 40 dwelling units in 2 miles, because that's how it reads in our subdivision regulations.
I have a question.
Sure.
If there were 60 plats within that 2-mile range, but only 40 dwelling units, then any of those additional 20 plats would have to come for a conditional use permit or a
Variance? variance.
Yes.
So
To
it
be able to
depends.
build on that?
So if they were platted prior to the enaction of this section of the ordinance, so this was added in the ordinance in 2021. So anything that was platted, so if that lot existed and it was platted or eloquently described prior to that date, then we would issue a building permit because they're essentially grandfathered in. So anything that would have been platted or eloquently described after that would require the variance and would have to meet this. So does that make sense?
Yes.
It's okay.
Additional questions?
Dwelling
Mike?
units. So you've got a threeplex, that's 3 dwelling units.
Excuse me, I wanted to
Yep.
add one extra. Will that be identified if a pre-existing grandfathered piece of property comes before us? How are we going to distinguish what is current and what was
Right.
past?
You wouldn't see this because staff would just issue the permit. Now, it would come before you or come up if they were asking for a plat, a subdivision of property, before or after there's already 40 units. The board sees this usually more times than you do because they see it under the Board of Adjustment. So they ask for the variance for this. So if they're granted it, then the plat will come through. If they're not granted it, typically the plat is not.
Okay, thank you.
No, that's okay.
Mike?
Just the threeplex would be 3 dwelling units. Yeah, nope.
I have a question. Is there confusion caused by whether the road is maintained by the county or not, or built to the county specifications? Has there been any confusion on any of that?
What do you mean by confusion?
Tend to look at road improvements when we, especially like sub-rigs, 100 sub-rigs and whatnot, as we want new designs which allow for greater size safety equipment, turning radiuses, that sort of thing. If we're looking at roads that don't have an appropriate, per our ordinance, ingress egress situation, are there some of them really out of whack versus? That's why I was asking whether they were maintained. I assume the county doesn't maintain many roads that don't meet some sort of original county specification. What we're up to, are we 100 feet now for total
Right away?
aggregated width? It used to be 65.
It just depends on the zoning
Yes.
district.
Okay.
So to answer your question, I think that, I know Commissioner Drews probably can answer this. There have been some variances that come up where the road width and the road maintenance and those things have been considered in whether or not they granted or denied a variance, but.
I think if you explain what's terminology for arterial is probably more prevalent than whether it's a county road or some other road.
Right.
Part B would be what about road districts?
Right, and arterials are, I'll try to give an example. We don't have a whole lot of them in the county, but like Covington in Rapid Valley, that would be an arterial. I'm trying to think in the hills, Dunsmore, that one would be considered an arterial. Things that, where all your collector streets basically filter on and then it goes to your principal arterials. So there's not a lot of them in the county.
And then Charlie, as far as your question about county maintenance, I can tell you that because I've been working on some of the highway ordinances, our designations of roads are going to be changing a little bit. It'll be based on the number of houses or businesses that are on that road, as opposed to, well, we've just always maintained this road. There's only one house on it, but we've always plowed it. So we're going to be changing some of those designations through the Board of Commissioners. And I believe that maybe that ordinance needs to be amended at least one more time. There's a lot of discussions, but I can tell you that there are county roads that do not meet Ordinance 14 that are being maintained by the county.
Okay. But this is more than where I was headed with this. This is more to clean up language than it is to address an issue.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was going to be my bottom line. Thank you.
And I know that 40-unit rule, where the 40 have come from, and just a little background. We did meet with some of the fire administrators and previous fire administrators with the city and the county, and that 40 comes from way back when, and it has to do with response and who they can notify and things like that. That just kind of was a number, and that's what they've stuck with. But that's what where that number came from. Whether or not it has any indication on this, I think what Commissioner Drews was talking about moving forward is 40 units, 40 a good number in every situation. So that I think what we were talking about. If it's on a good road, if there's different, things, is it because of fire, is it because of flooding? I mean, there's just different instances or different situations in every one of them. So instead of being on that hard, fast 40, what other exemptions or considerations can you have for them? So
That's the way I understood it too, that in other words, the commissioners' discussion will include additional matters involving the issue of dead-end road systems, which has been brought up many, many times. We're trying to clean up some language in the ordinance to make what they review, they understand what they're reading. Everybody does, the audience, the commissioners.
right, for the variances
Right.
mostly,
Yep.
or when they come in for those, yes.
I like it. Thank you. Start biting away at it to clean it up.
And this isn't the last time you'll probably see this. Like I said, there are still some discussions about how to address it based on different situations, so.
Any other questions for Brittany? Any from the audience?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve OA 23-05.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve ordinance amendment OA 23-05 to amend section 204-F, general district provisions of the Pennington County zoning ordinance. Discussion from the audience, from the commission. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to item number 25.
Item 25 is ordinance amendment OA 23-06 to amend section 103 definitions. And this is just to update the definitions this is actually in the zoning ordinance. So it actually is consistent with the change that we just made. It got rid of the functioning of it as an arterial. So the definition matches what we just was approved in the prior request.
I'll just make a comment. I think it does clean it up. I think the other one's kind of confusing.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead and any discussion from the audience? And the chair would address a motion.
I move we approve OA 23-06.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve ordinance amendment OA 23-06 to amend section 103 definitions of the Pennington County zoning ordinance. Discussion from the audience, from the commission. I just going to throw in one. I really do. If you read both of those, it cleans up some of the things we've sat here and listened to before. The total number of roadways always seem to get people headed off in a wrong track. I don't know. That's my own opinion. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 26.
Item 26 is ordinance amendment OA 23-07 to amend section 904 dead-end roads of the Pennington County subdivision regulations. So this is again to update this section. 904 is actually the section that does definitions in the subdivision regulations. The previous two were in the zoning ordinance. One major change is it refers to units. In the subdivision regulations have to do with subdivision of property into lots. So that's why that was changed from units to lots. So it was consistent to what the subdivision regulations actually do. So
That's a pretty simple one. Discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I see that you changed it from 40 units to 40 lots. Should be 40 building sites.
Well, we decide, our ordinance, our zoning ordinance defines lots, so that's usually why the word that we use is lot, because lot is any piece of property that can be transferred and developed. So that's essentially kind of what that is. If you read the definition of lots, that's what that is. Like, are you talking about, yeah.
I understand what you're saying.
Mhm.
I know that we've had requests, to subdivide and to
Mhm.
create more than one lot where one lot exists currently.
And this would require a subdivision regulation variance if they wanted to be over the 40.
Okay, good.
Any other questions for Brittany on that? Chair would address a motion.
Move to approve OA 23-07.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve ordinance amendment OA 2307 to the amend section 904 dead end roads of the Pennington County subdivision regulations. And the primary change, of course, is for the staff's recommendation is lots. Discussion from the audience. From the commission. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're on to item number 27.
Item 27 is ordinance amendment OA 23-08 to amend section 200 definitions of the Pennington County subdivision regulations. So this is just adding the dead end road system definition, so it's consistent. So in the zoning ordinance and then the subdivision regulations, the definition is the same.
Okay, questions for Brittany on that one? We're getting the two on the same page, so to speak,
Yes.
straightened out,
Exactly.
rather than two different looks at a definition,
Mhm.
which does come up in your reviews a lot from people that are coming in here asking for review assistance. Is that not
It
correct?
gets confusing, especially during the Board of Adjustment, because there was one that didn't meet the arterial, and then there was one that did. One needed a variance and one didn't, so it gets confusing and inconsistent. So this is meant to be, so it's more consistent, yes.
So we're doing a lot of nice cleanup work for the Board of Commissioners to really discuss the issue.
Mhm.
I like that. Tough world out there, right, Gear?
Right.
At least, I laugh about that, but at least we don't have to decide more on the issue. We're looking at just words here. All right, any other discussion? From the audience? Care to address a motion?
Move to approve OA 23-08.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve ordinance amendment OA 23-08 to amend section 200 definitions of the Pennington County subdivision regulations. Discussion from the audience, from the commission. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now we go back to the front. We are at item 28.
County Board.
Item 28 is a county board report. The Board of Commissioners concurred with the Planning Commission's recommendations from the February 13th, 2023 meeting, with the exception of major planned unit development overlay amendment, Katie Smirnova and Brett Wallfish. This item was continued to the April 18th Board of Commissioners meeting.
Such a surprise. Any questions for Brittany on that one? Or our commissioner? We've got him here. We can corner him. It's a tough one. That's a tough deal, the whole thing. Thank you, Brittany. Items from the public. Are you just monitoring us, Ms. Shagru?
I'm waiting for 30.
Oh, all right.
30.
Items from the staff. A special PC meeting, March 28, 2023 at 4 p.m. Go ahead, staff.
This special meeting is to discuss the vacation home Rental ordinance, section 319. We did meet last week for a good 2 hours. Got
Yes.
quite a bit of testimony. I have put all of that testimony in, basically in bullet points, so I'll be sending that out with that. I didn't do like per name, but I just like kind of listed all of the bullet points from each of the speakers. So it'll be easier for
Thank
the
you.
commission. We haven't received too many more public comments, like in writing, to add to the packet. There was some information that was hand-delivered, so that will be in the packet for this meeting, so. Yeah.
You get to throw some things in here, Joan?
I get to throw something at you. This morning, there was a gentleman from Lawrence County that testified on an item, and I'm sorry I wasn't in here to be certain what item he was testifying on, but he wanted to thank you for making the right choice, addressing concerns of the community, and they're proud of you and your hard work.
Wow. Boy, that's a terrible thing to say to a hungry person. Anyway, I'm going to just elaborate quickly so that we won't hold it up. My hope is, and Brittany, you certainly are eligible to reply, that when we go through the hearing this time, we will open it up as a hearing based upon our old format that we announced. However, if you remember, about 3/4 of it was held up, and then we opened it up to other people who voluntarily came out. Some good folks walked up and provided some things. As the chair, I wouldn't hesitate opening it up to some review of the new proposed ordinance. Is that something that the planning department would be comfortable with? In other words, where they literally could come up with a section they're unhappy about and tell us what they're unhappy about it.
Right. And just going through all of the comments, I do believe the biggest comment was the 1 acre.
Oh, no question.
The 1 acre lot size, especially for those properties that are on public water and sewer. So that was one of the biggest concerns. Like when I was going through the notes, that seemed to be one of the biggest concerns, almost most of the speakers that came up.
If we do not have enough speaker requests, in other words, you wouldn't hesitate if I said if you've got your copies and you want to speak out of a particular section that's got you, your feathers ruffled, you have no problem with
Yeah,
that?
and if this commission decides to do that, is there a motion that would be needed?
Yes.
Just so I can put it on, because I try to update the
Correct.
sidebar on the webpage, then that way they know. Because I know that there's a pretty large group that's monitoring and checking to see
I
what's
think
going on.
absolutely
So
we'd
if
have to have a motion
if they're
from the
gonna
commission.
take comment and then you guys are going to look at making changes to the ordinance, I can put that on there so they're aware.
As well as I think we need to note that we haven't sat and read it yet either. That isn't our intent. Our intent is to listen to the folks that have concerns about it or support of it. But I would do that only with a motion. I think it went well. I was comfortable with it. I thought a lot of people came for it. I think it showed at the end when we dropped the speaker request forms and said, do you want to fill out the 2 hours or, and there was people right away put their hand up, 3-4 folks that hadn't submitted a request form. And I think that's excellent when we show them, we plan to stay here till 6 o'clock. We'll listen.
Mr. Chair, what would your motion be written like?
I would just say, are we going to allow open testimony from those members of the audience that are here? Because we're not advertising the fact that we're going to review the actual ordinance, correct?
We just advertised
As
it
hearing.
just as a hearing. So how you want to manage that hearing?
Yeah. That we would be going, in my mind, a little beyond. I think that's what Brittany's saying too. It would be very important to have a motion so that we then allowed folks to come back up and speak about particular aspects. And I would assume not somebody come up with their whole shopping list. I'm saying we want this in a hearing basis. If you have a problem with it. So that we'd have to word it correctly, correct, Kevin? I'll sit down and think about that, some sort of motion that we could.
And one thing that you guys could do, Megan Kruger, State's Attorney's Office, is if it's, you could limit people. I mean, unfortunately, you can't tell people, well, you spoke last time, so you can't speak now. But you could limit it even more than you did last time,
Yes.
basically saying, we've taken a bunch of testimony already. I'm only going to take 1 or 2 minutes from each person. I'm not allowing rebuttal. You know, please submit your comments if you have any additional comments ahead of the meeting so that we can review it, because right now we're going through and looking to see what changes we want to make. We're not necessarily taking a bunch of testimony, additional testimony. I mean, that's one option that you guys can use. I mean, because I know that probably most of the people that are going to show up are the people that showed up last time. So
I think my statement to them was we did not intend to item by item review the ordinance as proposed. This was a hearing on the stance of the speaker in regards to the ordinance as a whole.
yeah, and you guys can do how we've done it before. If there are particular parts that any of you as individuals want to change, you know, you can bring it up as a motion and say, I want to change it to this, and then it can be voted on. That would be my preference, so that way it's clear for the record. Because a lot of times what I see happen is there's a lot of discussion about how to change it, but no action.
No motion.
Yeah. So if you guys want to make changes, you know, obviously you guys can't talk to each other outside of this meeting in more than, well, a majority. But certainly, you know, you can talk to each other in twos, and however, you know, you want to see how you all want to change it. And then, you know, bring all those discussions here, and then make motions in front of the whole body and all that stuff. So.
And Chairman, I would suggest, because I think this works well for staff, instead of going line by line for each ordinance, look at concepts or ideas, like is the special use permit or special permitted use versus CUP, the criteria for those, like generally, instead of trying to wordsmith. Because I think with the committee that worked better, and I think those concepts are what's our sticky, you know, the sticking points for people, like that was one. One of them was the fees. That was another one that came up. You know, how much oversight is there? Should there just be, you know, like a license, almost kind of like the septic, where you review it every couple of years. They're in, you know, they're complying, they're good. They get a license, they hang it on their wall. You know. I mean, there's just lots of different things. But looking at the concepts instead of just going through, because then if we have to make major changes or propose major changes, it's easier to bring those through than trying to just wordsmith every single line. Because I think the concepts are what's going to be the issue, not necessarily wordsmithing.
Yeah, and I would, as your guys' legal counsel, I would agree with that, because ultimately it's going to be Brittany and I writing it. I don't want you guys to spend tons of your time trying to write something that may not make sense in the context of the whole thing together. So if you guys have concepts that you want to change, you know, if you want people to have, you know, a vacation home rental in a 1 mile, you know, less than 1 acre, then, you know, just say that, make that as your motion, and then we'll write it to reflect whatever the motion is. So that way you guys aren't having to say, I want it to say blah, 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 blah. Instead of just giving us a concept.
I concur 100% because there's one outstanding one that showed through the whole meeting, and that's there needs to be a little more understanding of special use permit, conditional use permit, of which I believe the only way to deal with the audience ought to have the opportunity to hear from the Planning Commission what that approach is. In other words, so that they know it first. There was some confusion on the part of speakers as to they didn't realize whether they were talking about the conditional use permit area or special use permit area. I don't know how many of you picked up on that, but there was items they didn't understand, and that's one of them. I agree 100% on concept.
Yeah, certainly, and I wasn't there. I had another obligation I had to go to. But as far as, I mean, clarifying to the group that this is only going to apply in unincorporated Pennington County is probably going to help you guys make it so you don't get a bunch of speakers that they really don't have any relevance to the meeting. I know that sounds kind of harsh, but.
If they're in Rapid City, yeah.
Yeah, if they're in Rapid City, they have completely different rules that apply to them. So if you're in unincorporated Pennington County, and you have thoughts on how it should work in unincorporated Pennington County, sure, come on up and talk. But if you're only concerned about Rapid City, that's not what this meeting is about.
Just made me remember, I told them they could bring up any legal issues or questions at that meeting. They could at the next one because you'd be in attendance.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't I?
Yes, you did.
I know
I
that
hope that's
there was
true.
I heard that there was still discussion about legal issues regardless, and Brittany's kind of filled me in
And
on
we
some
kind
of
of
it.
put them off to the side, and we said, we don't have a representative here to really speak on those.
It's funny what happens during meetings when legal counsel isn't there, because you hear about all of the wonky ideas that people have about the Constitution later on.
There's a few of those too.
So I'll be at the next one, so I can clarify those questions. So.
Yeah.
Any other questions? So just to clarify here, the motion, I agree. If we do have any proposals that we want, they're saying they prefer we do it by the motion, which we have to open to discussion. And certainly, and the state requires this, we do have to ask the audience whether they want to participate in our discussion. And it doesn't, we have to allow them whether they got a speaker request form or not. So I just wanted all the commissioners to know that. And you know that, and I know. But not all of us volunteers sometimes know these things. All right.
I'd just make a comment. I've seen a couple posts on Facebook that have a lot of people commenting on it. So I wouldn't guarantee that there's fewer people this next time.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just that I've seen a lot of comments. And I was kind of the other way. You were talking 2 minutes, and I was thinking 5 minutes just because it seemed like 3 minutes goes by pretty darn fast when you're trying to do anything. But it would depend on the number of people that came.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys have a full house, you're going to be here for 3 hours. If you let people have 10 minutes and then
Right.
5
No,
minutes.
I think there needs to be a
rebuttal.
limit on there, but the 3 minutes
Yeah.
did seem awful fast last time when we were doing
I
it.
think I only spoke to 2 people that were going back over the same thing again during the meeting. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
were That only happened twice. So that does happen. And I'll try to, address that because we don't want that. That just goes on and steals time from other people.
Yeah.
Chairman, would it be, I don't know, prudent maybe during that meeting to, if there's a few concepts, like we already know, the special use permit versus the CUP,
Right.
the fees, the 1 acre, to just take those, like,
On the agenda?
or just, as a commission that day, like, okay, these are the 3 items that we're going to consider. So then that way the speakers can come up and speak to them. So, like addressing the 1 acre, because I know that was a big one.
There's 2 right there.
And addressing the fee structure and whether it's a permit or a license. And then once you kind of hammer those out, then you can look at what's the requirements for those.
If you do each of them as an individual item, though, then the same person can get up and talk on each.
But they might have that concept, but that's better than, it's really hard. I've been through so many of these like ordinances, where we've done these ordinance amendments and contentious issues. It just seems more structured to have people like, why don't you want the 1 acre? So they're not like here and there
Versus
and
my
here and there
asking
and
the
here
commission
and there
for
and.
a motion each time to make each one a topic of discussion. Is that a safer way to do it, Megan?
Well, I mean, I see kind of both of them as the same thing. I mean, if there isn't a single one of you on this commission that wants to change the 1 acre, and I'm not saying that that's true, but hypothetically, say there is nobody that actually wants to change it, why are we setting it aside as a separate item?
Oh, but there could
You know
be
what I
some
mean?
provisions for changing it, like if they were on public water and sewer or things like, there's different things to consider when looking at it. That's.
Yeah.
Because we do have Rapid Valley. I know it's not the city, but we do have Rapid Valley. We do have concerns about people being
One gentleman was
able.
very eloquent about his explanation about Rapid Valley.
So there is, some concern about that area. I know that we always think of the hills, but Rapid Valley is also, it was brought up a couple times from several individuals, so.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like the concept of speaking on a particular topic at a particular time. And people get up and they ramble off, multiple things, and then somebody else will come up and they hit some of them, they don't hit some of them. I think it gives us the opportunity to really focus on a 1 acre minimum, on a trespass issue, any of these kind of things where we are accepting public discussion under that single topic helps us get the whole parameter of that particular topic. And then we move on to another section or another topic
Yeah, but
within.
did you catch though what Megan was saying? If we do approach it that way, if we list it in advance, then the speaker has the right to review all those that are listed in advance. Then we would be going to the motion type that we open something for a topic of discussion and ask and allow a person come up and they reply on that item because they don't know what our next item is going to be.
Right, I understand that. I
Okay.
think what it does is it targets their opinion to that one particular topic.
So you would prefer the motion type system?
Personally, yes.
I think that what you, and sorry to interrupt you, I think what you guys will have to do if you do that then is tell them you are only talking about
Okay.
this right now. Because otherwise, and I've seen this happen hundreds of times because I've sat in tons of meetings for you and the Board of Commissioners, is if there is one topic and there's multiple items for that one topic, the person's going to get up here and they're going to say all of their thoughts. They don't care about topics.
Good point.
So if that's the way that you guys want to go, I would strongly consider saying this is the only topic that we are going to talk about at this moment. If you want to talk about this topic, it's coming up next, but we are not going to accept comments on any of this other stuff until
Carol has
that
to
item
police it.
comes up.
Yeah.
And then to expand upon that, I'm not opposed to holding more meetings.
Yeah.
And my suggestion would be is that we take the 3 hottest topics that were brought up at the last meeting and say, this is the focus of discussion for this upcoming meeting. And I don't know if that's all right, but I think that if we can hash out, these 3 hot topics, then we can focus on the next 3 hot topics and just kind of tailor those hearing meetings and really be able to focus and understand both sides from everybody on those particular items.
And then my other question is, will you guys have kind of a generalized topic for if there's something, for example, that Karen wants to change that maybe isn't a hot topic, but you feel passionate about it, is there going to be a open topic so that way Karen can bring a motion on the thing that she feels passionate about, even though the community doesn't feel that way?
Of course, we could handle that by the chairman at least asking for a second. If we don't get a second, I second it for discussion purposes only.
Well, I mean,
Don't
because
tend
you're
to do
gonna.
that, but at least we
Yeah.
could get Karen's item for
And
discussion.
maybe we just do it as items from the commission, as a separate,
Yeah.
items
Yeah.
from the commission. These
Sure.
are topics that I want to personally bring up. These aren't topics that have been brought up as issues
Not
by
a
the
bad idea,
public.
but then we'd have to submit them to you so that we could put them together because we can't talk about them outside of this forum.
Right, but you guys could discuss them once Karen brings them up. And
Once she brings
yes,
them up.
and it might, someone in the audience might be like, hey, I think that too. So
Triggers.
you might end up, and then you can make a motion on
I-
moving forward with
I
that.
agree with that because I'm going to certainly meet with Brittany before we have the meeting to see if she's got any directions from Megan or her.
I think that would probably keep it the cleanest is you guys submit the changes that you want ahead of time, so Brittany can just put them under items from the planning commission, changes from the planning commission, something like that. So that way, there's just a clear direction to the meeting, because otherwise it's just gonna be chaos.
Because we did tell them that we've had opportunity to read the ordinance, but we haven't discussed it.
Yeah, it's just, when we did the septic ordinance and when we've done the VHR the last 2 times, the topics are all over the place and then have to wrangle it back in and talk about it. It'd be nice to just, okay, what are, pros and cons, then a motion's made. Do we keep the 1 acre? Do we not keep the 1 acre? Do we keep the 1 acre with exemptions? In certain instances, is it okay? And then move on, that's that's been decided, and then move on to the next one. Is the parking too restrictive? That was another one. Is the parking places too restricted? If it is, if it isn't, like, make that and then move on. Those types of things, because it just, rather than like in this B3BA, this one sentence, and then it gets like on a sentence instead of a concept, and
The only exception I would take to that, and it's because of Robert's rules, I don't believe that I should be involved in that. In other words, any of the selection of those or anything to do with those, because of the person that's running the meeting, it has a tendency to indicate or show the crowd that there's a direction, and that shouldn't be there. So
Well, I think
I'm not going to participate.
I think staff could make a recommendation under the agenda heading, and it's based on the public testimony, because I have the bullet points. You can see which ones they are. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious what the topics were.
And we can
and I
have
think we
that
can go,
ready for the commission that evening. Yep. Is everybody comfortable with that? Does that fit a broader sense of thinking?
comment from the public.
Yes. Joyce, you have to introduce yourself for the record. We've had you sitting back there waiting, and we enjoy having you.
Joyce Shagru. Many of you don't know me, but I was involved in the preceding ordinance development, so I'm still interested in the topic. And I appreciate what you're doing today. I attended the last meeting just as an observer to be more structured, but maybe also if you have a time limit, maybe set a time limit for a subject. For example, if it's going to be the one
like we do the meeting
acre, like maybe 15 minutes or 20 minutes. Not that I wouldn't say strictly, but if you don't do that, from my experiences, the whole meeting may be just one subject. That's an option as well. I may speak at the next meeting, Charlie, because I've got some thoughts on things just from the ensuing years. So,
on the second vacation home rental committee, they did do just what Joyce was talking about. On the agenda, there was a time limit on some, and then what we did is we did a motion to bring it up on the next agenda. That it gave people time to go home and think about it before the next meeting, and it came up. So, and we were not strict about the time limit. We many times had 15 minutes when we ran 20 to 30, but we did at least get off the topic and move on to the next one.
and when I used to work in my former years, I was involved in many meetings like this. And what I did recognize in that last one was toward the end, when you opened it up just for comment, then we got just off on all kinds of bunny trails, that didn't really relate to the subject at hand. And so more structure, I think, if you can let people know, they can comply with 3 minutes. You just learn that. You don't go off and tell, your whole life. You just only have 3 minutes. At my age, at least, that's not enough. So.
Questions for Joyce before she sets back?
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
I would tend to agree with Joyce, and in my way of thinking is that when I was proposing particular topics, the 3 hot topics, say, in my mind, I was saying, well, we could allot a half hour for each one of those in a 2-hour meeting, and that still leaves the half hour at the end of the meeting for staff recommendations, public comment, opening it up, things like that. But that way they can tailor a direct, specific topic conversation. It'd be easy to keep it in within that 1 to 3 minute range because they're only commenting on one particular facet of that whole agreement.
Okay, the chair would address a motion to, I'd like to turn the staff loose to go ahead and advise us, and I don't think we should limit it to 3 topics. Those topics that were the of considerable issue at the first meeting and have that available in our packet for our own review as individual commissioners. And so I'd sure address a motion to allow them to do that.
I'll make that motion. I'm trying to figure out how to word it.
I don't think it's wise just to limit them to 3. Let them pick them out so that they can see, because it's tough we did leave it open, so some people covered 5 different items in their conversation, so they've got to go back and look a little bit. And it may not be just 3. We've discussed 3 major ones right here, so it may be 4 or 5.
Megan's going to help me.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Megan Kruger, State's Attorney's Office. So what I would word the motion as, so it can be kind of open enough, is to direct the planning department to create a schedule for the next VHR committee meeting, in which they will pick topics of discussion for motion.
Based upon the previous?
Yeah, based upon the previous comments that we've received. Yeah.
I'll make this motion and you can correct any points.
You can just say, I make the motion.
I make that motion that Megan suggested.
Is there a second to that? I need a second.
Second.
Oh, okay. Discussion. I think it's great. I think we've got to do that, and we should see it in our individual packets, and we do with it what we see fit to do. We're big kids. We can handle it.
And I think that we should remind them again that Rapid City doesn't, the metropolitan area of Rapid City is not what we're talking about. It's things outside of the city limits. And
that's one of the issues.
Yeah. Because that was confusing last time. There were a number of them that kept coming
Yes, there
up.
was.
And, so we need to make
It's a
that
good
clear,
point, Kevin.
clear with
That's
them.
a big one.
Yeah.
And one thing that I was kind of thinking of as I was at the podium up here just a few minutes ago is maybe I could just do like a general informational, where does this apply?
Divisions.
And who does it apply to? And the difference between a CUP and a SPU, just so that way everybody back behind me can understand what we're actually talking about. Because I think that there are a ton of people that don't understand any of this. They don't get that, well, it's Pennington County, so doesn't Pennington County have control over Rapid City? And they have no idea that that's not true. Your average person doesn't know that, so.
Seemed like most of the people didn't even understand, because it's so new, is the special use permit. If they weren't on the committee, they didn't understand that at all.
Yeah. I don't think that there are very many people that even realize that that was added in 2022. I mean, it's brand new legislation, so I don't think that there are very many places that are using that as a mechanism at all yet.
I heard someone else.
Mr. Chair, I got to leave, but before that, I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to add Megan, legal counsel, to the first agenda item to have general discussion on parameters.
Couldn't we call it just clean up topics from the previous?
We could call it just kind of general background
Right.
or something like that.
Since you weren't here and they expected
Yeah.
to head with a little more legal direction anyway. What do you think, Brittany?
Yes, I believe, I don't know if any of you remember, if you were on the board when we did the mining ordinance under 320. Michelle and I kind of tag teamed a presentation and gave a background and history before that. It was much easier. And then, and we could, and we could just tag team it. That's what we did on 320, and it kind of gave a good background. So then that way it was a good segue into the discussion. So.
Yeah, you can do the historical stuff and then I can do the legal side of it.
So.
And we'll put it in a PowerPoint for everybody.
All right.
Yeah.
I think that's a
Didn't we
good
have
idea.
just one motion to direct the staff to give us those hot topics from the last meeting? That's it.
Yes.
Any other discussion?
One more question
Go
about,
ahead.
how about the 1 and the 3 mile jurisdiction? I know.
I can give like a very brief explanation of
know.
that.
We know
But
where you're
really,
at.
the 1 and 3 don't particularly matter to VHRs. It's just that people don't understand what the 1 and the 3 is. I mean, I could certainly give a generalized, this is what the 1 and the 3 is. It really doesn't have anything to do with VHRs.
Right.
Aside from if you're plating or if you're septic. If you're
Because
using
I wasn't
septic.
sure if there was any jurisdiction from Rapid City making anything yet.
No. Yeah, they really only have, in the 1 mile, they have septic, and obviously plating, and then in the 3 mile, they have plating. But as far as zoning, we maintain authority up to the city line.
Well, that might be good to pass out
Yeah.
along here too, then.
Yeah, I can certainly just throw a little blurb in there, so.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Now, Kevin left the meeting, he made the motion, and it was seconded, so any other discussion? All right, and this is whatever the wording goes into the record, but we all understand the staff is going to have in our packets and available to us some of the hot topics that were before, as well as we will have a little bit of what we would call open directive from staff personnel at the commencement of the meeting on some items. That's the way everybody understands it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And Jim, you did, we hear you actually a
said-
fraction of a second later, and this time I didn't hear you.
Okay, yeah, I approve of this.
I'm just making sure that you were in agreement.
Okay.
We didn't pick on you much. All right, items from the membership, anything?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Commissioner Roskinick and I have been trying to adjust our schedules to make it work for this month and for next month. And so he will be attending the March 8th meeting. And I will be back attending the March 13th meeting.
Okay.
So.
Very good. Actually, the audience probably feel more comfortable because it would be the same commissioner at the public hearing.
Yep.
I think it's a good choice. Thank you. Any other items from the membership? Hearing none, I'd address a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. See, just a fraction of a second.